In the celestial continent, in the forbidden, howling land, there stood the ancient demon atop that peak. The old demon Chu had spent his entire life deceiving and committing evil deeds. After 3 years of pursuit, they all met the same end. His face showed no expression, even in that situation. The master of the rising peak caught his attention and needed to settle matters with him. The saintess of Taisu was a woman of great beauty, with blue eyes and silver hair, dressed in light-colored garments. The demon Chu was a tall man with long black hair. He had a mark on his forehead, a man without regrets. He spent his entire life cultivating and fighting. He also knew that among those in the same realm as him, none were capable of overpowering him. If there was anything he could regret, it would be how merciless time was. If he only had another 1,000 years, no one dared oppose him in that world, and the saintess of Taisu was staring at him with a harsh expression. She decided he would not persist because of his ruthlessness, as he was the one who showed no remorse. All the others who were pursuing the ancient demon seized the opportunity, and they all attacked at once, and it happened that the demon managed to make a hand gesture. Even at the end, Chu showed neither regret nor fear of his decline. After seeing the demon's hand gesture, they became worried about what terrible thing it could mean. When Chu looked up, he saw 3 apparitions, all forming the celestial Dharma. Each apparition employed its own technique, and the red-colored one unleashed its power. 3,000 worlds, and even so, the cunning demon tried to escape. Even in his terrible condition, he still displayed his arrogance. The emperor lamented mortality, but the demon would never mourn for anything. He plunged his sword into that rock, and after that, there was a massive explosion. However, in the end, he ultimately perished, leading some of them to believe he had sacrificed himself. Many found the events regrettable. If they had gone to the Great Wall of Tianyuan, it would have been better. Yet, everyone thought that he, known as the old demon Chu, was truly dead. In the sacred land, Taisu had 18 peaks in the upper holy domain, while the remaining ones were in the lower holy domain. A month passed on Rising Sky Peak, one of the strongest peaks in the sacred land's upper holy domain. In the mansion of the heir disciple of Rising Sky Peak, there was the old demon Chu, who had returned. The demon Chu Xiao, before his rebirth, was a university student and had already prepared for resurrection. Afterward, he noticed he was in Taisu's sacred land and thought it was destiny. The system detected that the user had been revived, and its function had changed. He needed to choose. He had the option to become the villain of fate, or the well-trained villain. Both choices came with rewards. In his past life, he chose to be the villain of fate. After being hunted by warriors, he became a nuisance. This time, he would choose to grow strong in secret and later destroy the world, making it a magnificent spectacle. Chu imagined that if he could become a sacred disciple, it would be better, and this influenced his choice. After choosing the well-trained villain function, he asked the system to open the status panel. He realized he was the heir disciple of Rising Sky Peak, with average qualifications and poor luck. His strength was barely greater than that of a chicken. He wondered what the former owner of the body had done. 10 years ago, the heir disciple was involved in a life-and-death battle over jealousy. In the battle, the heir was defeated with a single blow, his cultivation destroyed, and he suffered intolerable humiliation. The demon thought that disciple was ridiculous, beaten like a side character because of jealousy. Since he had inherited the body, he would also inherit its enemies, and he would take revenge on them all. He thought he could cultivate the body until he became invincible. An hour later, he realized the body was useless, gravely injured, and without any cultivation. With a malicious smile, he thought it didn't matter because, luckily, he had other methods. Still on Rising Sky Peak, a group of young men sat in the open air, talking about the master's return. The same one who had defeated the old demon Chu. They spoke of how the demon Chu had claimed to be invincible against those of the same realm. He was nearby, overhearing everything, thinking they were ridiculous because they didn't know he was alive and a disciple. That was when he decided that, since he couldn't go against them, he wanted to join them. All those people who had been speaking ill of him were startled to see him alive, though they pretended to be happy. After saying it wasn't that serious, he went up the stairs whistling, while the others whispered about him. He had entered a battle. There wasn't much time, and his cultivation had been destroyed. The cunning demon Chu Xiao didn't care about the rumors others were spreading. He just kept climbing the stairs. When he reached the top, he knocked on the gate, seeking his master, claiming to be her disciple. After being granted permission to enter, he walked toward the altar where the saint resided. She was astonished that 10 days had passed since he fought and got injured, and only now did he come to see her. He knelt, greeted his master, and asked her for a favor. She remarked that his cultivation was weak and criticized him for daring to fight stronger disciples because of a woman. Chu Xiao questioned the master, pointing out that his cultivation was weak, and she should know why. He raised concerns about cultivation resources since they had been given to younger disciples. The disciple managed to anger her. She considered it bold of someone who had never put effort into anything. He confronted the saint, asking if she hadn't given him resources because he shared the same name as the old demon. He wondered if that was why she always despised him. He even found it amusing. She denied all accusations and said she would find a treasure between heaven and earth to help him cultivate. With a cynical smile, he told her he wouldn't wait. She could help him recover herself. She was shocked by his statement and asked how she could help, and he brought up the idea. He mentioned her body had a celestial fragrance, and if they practiced dual cultivation together, he could recover. Her expression turned to rage, and she asked what he was saying. The villain proposed they engage in dual cultivation and kissed her hand. Immediately, she withdrew her hand quickly and asked if he had a death wish. Raising her mighty sword, she told him she would cut off his limbs and expel him. It seemed that was exactly what he wanted her to do, as he quickly used a hand gesture. He activated a seal that prevented her from using the great sword or causing any harm. This made her tremble. She nearly collapsed to the ground, wondering what was happening, unable to use her superior saintly cultivation. As he moved his hands closer to touch her, she asked what he, an unfaithful disciple, wanted. He told his master to remain calm. She would be helping him learn to follow the correct path of the Tao. He explained that there were various cultivation domains and that one needed to establish a foundation to reach the great emperor domain. She asked the unfaithful disciple what he had done to her, as she felt like a mere mortal. Approaching her face as closely as possible, he thought about how he had sealed her cultivation. That day, when the superior saints were hunting him, before dying, he placed the celestial reincarnation seal. It was an artifact he obtained from the system for committing evil deeds, ensuring she would obey everything. With his hand on her chin and observing her beauty, he thought about how she had remained the same after so many years. Hearing her threats, she told him to stop merely threatening and go ahead and kill her. He told her that if Master Louis Shui of the Sharp Sky Peak found out the saint's cultivation was sealed, the master knew she couldn't let the other woman know, as she would surely come after her and attempt to end her life. She told him she would give him the artifact of heaven and earth, cultivation resources, and any power he chose. Placing both hands on her shoulders, he said that wasn't what he wanted. Imagining what it could be, she shouted aloud that it was impossible, absolutely impossible, for him to get what he wanted. The idea of her, a saint of the superior domain, being touched by an insect like him was unacceptable. He bore no grudge against the Taisu Holy Land and didn't understand why she allied with the others. Producing a magical book, he told her it contained an ancient executive secret art beneficial for them both. Seeing the miraculous secret art, she even forgot she was being neutralized and became enchanted by the art. That secret art, linked to the celestial Tao, was something incredible and absolute. Almost convincing her to join him, he asked her to accept her disciple, who, in turn, resisted with all her strength. As soon as he began to get what he wanted, the system informed him that he had become an unfaithful disciple, and by desecrating the saint, he gained 1,000 cultivation points, and as he continued, his wounds healed. The user's qualifications were also increasing, and he could now cultivate 20 times faster. A few hours later, his cultivation advanced to the 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm. Disciple Chu Xiu thanked the master for helping with his cultivation and suggested she rest. The master, after being subdued by her disciple, asked him to remove the seal, freeing her cultivation. Her disciple, an ancient and cunning demon, refused to comply with her request. The master asked if he intended to have her killed. He advised her not to tell anyone and to remain obedient. He also revealed that he had recorded the entire act using a crystal sphere now in his possession. The woman who was once the master of Rising Sky Peak was now just a master stripped of honor. The ancient demon mocked the master after using her, saying he recorded everything to remember it later. He warned her not to think she could remove the seal on her own. Only 2 people could remove it, either he or someone who had reached the level of Great Emperor, and if he died, she would become an ordinary person. He added that everything was recorded, and if he died, the contents of the crystal would be spread everywhere. He asked how people would react after seeing a respectable master engaged in such acts. With no other option, she cursed him, saying he would die a horrible death. She couldn't understand how an insect, not even in the Tao spiritual realm, could possess the strength to seal her cultivation. When he went outside, he realized he had spent a long time with his master, as it was already nighttime. He was satisfied because, with his master's help, he had advanced to the 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm. If the spiritual sea realm was the barrel, the Foundation Establishment realm was the barrel's maker. He knew that the more solid his foundation, the larger and sturdier the barrel would be. He was determined to create a solid and supreme foundation. Only then could he face cultivators stronger than himself. He thought that the resources he had gathered in his past life might still be in the same place he left them. Conveniently, he passed by the flying boat pavilion and realized he could obtain one of the boats. Taking a flying boat would be a good idea and very convenient for him. He could take one and head to his destination to retrieve the resources to strengthen his motivation. He knew exactly where the cultivation resources he had hidden in his past life were located. When he arrived at his destination, he slowed the flying boat to park it safely. After landing at the spot where he had hidden them, he bit his finger to perform the revelation spell. Now that his belongings were revealed, he could easily locate and examine those items. He found his resource chest and hoped it would make him stronger. Thinking this way, he seemed very satisfied, as those resources could be sufficient. Suddenly someone arrived, calling him Trash Chew, and expressing satisfaction at finding him again. Those who called for him remarked that they were curious about the presence they sensed. But it turned out to be just that trash, and they admired him for recovering in only 10 days. Looking disdainfully at those who insulted him, he thought about how, beyond destroying his cultivation, they still mocked him. The demon Chu Xiu, already aboard his flying boat, told them they would pay for this later. He warned them that, within 10 days, they would fight another life-and-death battle in the arena. They didn't understand how he could say such a thing, given that he had already lost last time. They became excited and grinned upon seeing that the trash still dared to challenge Brother Zong. The one being challenged couldn't contain his joy and used the 1,000-mile sound transmission technique. He informed everyone that Trash Chu, whom he hadn't killed out of respect for his master, was once again set for a duel to take place in 10 days in the arena, a life-and-death battle. After challenging Zhang Meng, the demon returned to Qi Mingya's mansion. The master's mansion was brimming with spiritual power, and he was certain she wouldn't oppose him, as it was all his. The old demon Chu arrived radiantly, announcing that her disciple had come to see her. The master found it odd. What could he be doing there so late at night in her mansion? He wanted to know why she was questioning his presence there. She asked him to approach her. Placing his hand on his master's chin, he said he knew how to do far worse things than what he had already done. He paused in front of her for a moment, concentrated, and activated the array ability. He placed a seal that protected large parts of the mansion. She asked if he had inherited the array from the ancient Tao. The demon praised the master for her keen perception, asking if she wanted to learn and what she could offer him. After hearing such indecency, she crossed her arms and said she didn't want to learn. He then went into seclusion. He told her that if she was hungry, he had brought something for her to eat. After all, with her cultivation sealed, she was just a human. She said that one day, she would still manage to kill him. Hearing this, he decided to slap her basketballs. As she felt flat on her face in her quarters, he told her she was misbehaving. While walking away, he told her he had placed some lethal traps at the back of the mansion. He also mentioned that he needed to improve his cultivation and that losing her would be a pity. Now that he was properly situated in the mansion's depths, he decided to look for information on the items. First, he would consume a fruit considered a treasure between heaven and earth, capable of strengthening his foundation. He wondered if there was anyone on the celestial continent with a foundation stronger than his. Upon consuming the fruit, the Tao scripture was activated, which began recreating his foundation. Numerous system messages started appearing regarding the user's cultivation. It informed him that his cultivation had been reduced to the mortal domain. He was asked if he wanted to break through to the next domain. He quickly responded yes. He had used the most powerful technique for foundation building from the Tao scripture. Everyone believed the 9th layer was the limit, merely following the path left by their ancestors. But what no one knew was that the 10th layer existed, and only those who pushed past their limits could discover it. Breaking and rebuilding. Between life and death lies great fear and opportunity. 7 days passed since he entered seclusion to cultivate. A message announced that the breakthrough was complete, and the user had advanced to the 10th layer of the established domain. However, his cultivation points were 0. He was content, as he had made significant progress. The master of Sharp Sky Peak, Lu Shui, saw that energy coming from Rising Sky Peak. She speculated that such a powerful energy fluctuation could only come from Master Qi Mangdai. It was the condensation of flesh and soul energy that the ancient demon had achieved. On that day, with his solid foundation, he intended to break his chains and ascend to the deep sea domain. A message informed him that the user was about to break through to the spiritual seas domain. He was pleased, as he had successfully unlocked the reward system. Now it was time to see the rewards he had earned. The message stated that the user had achieved perfection in the reward system, and it was unlocked. The system congratulated the user on receiving the sacred primordial body. It seemed the reward was unexpected for him, as he didn't even know how to use the primordial body. A message informed him that the sacred primordial body was fusing with the user. The ancient demon was annoyed, having consumed many resources to break into the spiritual domain. The ancient demon became even more frustrated as messages encouraged him to rob his enemies. He wondered how many cultivation points he would need and how he would exchange them for advancement. Now that he had gained the sacred primordial body, he had no choice but to cultivate. For that, he had a master at his disposal, whom he could use whenever and however he wanted. With that in mind, he climbed the stairs of Chimingya's mansion in pursuit of more dual cultivation. The master was in her mansion, slightly calmer, eating, now that she was just a human. She was eating fruits quietly in her refuge until a voice irritated her. Seeing her disciple walking slowly toward her, she was already annoyed, knowing what to expect. As he approached her, he remarked that a few days without seeing her felt like a year. He also decided to sniff her to see how she smelled after all this time. He asked how many days it had been since she last bathed. The master became furious, given the lethal traps he had placed. At the back of the mansion, how could she have a place to bathe? He bent over, took her hand. Apologizing, he said that if that were the case, he would bathe his master himself, and she wouldn't need to worry. Pulling her by the arm, he led her while saying he would continue to like her even without a bath. After taking her to the back of the mansion, he told her that, as expected, her body had a celestial fragrance, that her skin was so white and soft even after a few days without bathing, and she was worried. Still sniffing his master's hand, he told her to help her disciple improve his talent. When the disciple began uniting with his master, she mumbled that he was an unfaithful disciple. Mingya's eyes widened when she noticed someone outside. It was her elder brother, asking if she had gone into seclusion for cultivation. The master, while being consumed by her unfaithful disciple, told her brother she had some issues with her cultivation. Meanwhile, messages reached the villain, congratulating him for once again being wicked with his master. Tianjin, master of the prosperous Sky Peak, was very concerned about his sister and brought 7th grade healing pearls. Messages continued to arrive for the villain, praising his success in dual cultivation, while she told her brother she would recover. She mentioned she only needed a few days of rest. As she spoke, her face turned red with shame. Her elder brother decided to inform her that her disciple had challenged Zhang Meng again. The sister, still being consumed by the villain, replied that she was aware of the duel and that her disciple was responsible for his actions. Meanwhile, the wicked disciple had reached 617 celestial points, increasing his cultivation speed by 25 times. The elder brother began playing a flute and said the song was called Courting the Phoenix, which he had composed himself. After the villain finished his dual cultivation with his master, she was now upset and deeply saddened. Even as she spoke with her elder brother Tianjin, her disciple hadn't stopped using her. The villain even remarked to the master that her elder brother was incredible with the flute, which added to the fun. The unfaithful disciple decided to take further advantage of his master, saying that now they were close, she wouldn't mind if he took some of her cultivation resources, earning points by taking them. The unfaithful disciple, after forcing his master to hand over everything she had, looked at them and wasn't very pleased. The pills were only 4th grade, and while 5th grade ones were rare, there were none available. She explained that because of the seal, she couldn't access the other treasures, and he said he didn't care. After the villain left, Meng Nai thought about seeking help from the master of the sacred land to remove the seal. But then she recalled what he had said, that he was the only one capable of removing it, and began to fear what might happen. She couldn't accept the possibility of dying of old age as a mortal. She felt fortunate for having hidden a treasure before he managed to seal her cultivation. She wanted to use the bronze fox mask. Even if it didn't restore her cultivation level, it could conceal her presence. Recalling her memories, she realized that the mask had belonged to the old demon Chu, dropped when he was being hunted. She put on the mask and thought she needed to find a way to remove the seal, or she would remain just a toy for her disciple. When she put on the mask, the ancient demon Chu, who was in his room, noticed what his master had done. He began to fantasize about his master wearing the mask, and for him, it was good because no one would find her. He held the azure blood sword, which he had obtained from the system during the dual cultivation. He had 3 days until the life and death battle and intended to use the time to cultivate and refine the sword. As he sat cultivating, his energy emanated from his body, using the sword to balance and fly. He was notified that there was a sword in tent above the Taisu sacred land, 800 miles away. So he set out in that direction, and after reaching 999 miles, his eyes opened. He managed to locate the sword in tent, and now understood it. It was a fantastic breakthrough for the ancient demon Chu Shio. A message arrived congratulating the user for successfully finding the sword in tent. He had obtained one of the 5 celestial sword intents, the celestial killer sword intent. Satisfied, he thought the sword intent was highly compatible with him. He wanted to return to his master's mansion and use the system to enhance the celestial killer sword intent. Someone was observing everything from Pacific Sky Peak. Master Tai Suzy sensed someone searching for the sword intent. She looked and realized it came from the sacred land, finding it intriguing. She noticed that the disciple had truly climbed all the miles in search of the sword intent. In the last 30,000 years, only the sword god, who was in the Emperor realm, had managed to do so. She realized that someone in the sacred land possessed the potential to become the sword god. At Sky Peak, near the arena where the life and death battle was held, 3 days later, everyone was gathered. Jian Lingyun, from Sharp Sky Peak, thought the day would be exciting because he had broken through to the divine domain. However, he didn't want to include me, as he didn't think it was worth it. Younger brother Su was present. She was Su Tianjin, a disciple of Sharp Sky Peak. She said the matter began because of her. Her brother was upset, thinking that this trash wasn't anything special. Even so, the younger sister appreciated him. Zhan Meng warned the older sister that it was impossible, even for her, to save a man who wanted to die. Others present started commenting that he was scared and that's why he wouldn't show up. The fifth disciple of Rising Sky Peak, Tao Yao, asked them to stop praising the strong and belittling the weak. Several young men there admired her beauty and shouted her name. It was announced that Chu Xiu was arriving, and everyone saw him coming on a flying boat. He still carried a superior demeanor and had arrogance written all over his face. Tao Yao, seeing him, was happy and greeted him. He greeted her back. She was worried about what he might lose again, so he placed his hand on her head. She told him that in the last battle, she hadn't done anything, and he got hurt, which left her restless and sad. Turning around, he noticed the presence of the goddess from Sharp Sky Peak and thought Su Tianjin had good looks. Her cultivation base wasn't bad either. He stared at her from head to toe. While she looked back, she thought he seemed like a completely different person. The enemies were eager for a life-or-death battle in the arena. Even if someone died, there would be no questions. Then someone told Chu Xiu that since everyone was there, they might as well start the life-or-death battle. They wanted him to hurry, as they still needed to enter seclusion to cultivate. The demon asked for 1 more minute. Chu, after stepping into the arena, told all the gathered cultivators that they should place a bet. He revealed that he had a vial with 6 7th grade Tianyuan pills and would use them for the wager. And as he said this, the system message appeared, rewarding him with 300 cultivation points. Deceiving the cultivators of the Holy Land by pretending to be weak to defeat a tiger and gain resources. Hearing about the legendary pills, everyone was shocked, and Jian thought to himself that they were exactly what he needed. To prove he was telling the truth, he displayed the pills and asked the elder to explain them. Complying with the request, the elder explained that many cultivators desired those pills. It was unlikely they could buy them, as their value was 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones each. Tianjin was worried because he didn't have anything to wager that could compare to 6 million spirit stones. Knowing everyone might think that way, Demon Chu said that when someone couldn't wager enough, they could pool their resources for the bet, and then simply divide the winnings based on their contributions. Hearing this, everyone got excited and started betting on the villain's defeat. Chu Xiu had already anticipated this, and was thrilled that everyone was betting. He concluded by announcing the end of the wagers and naming the elder from Prosperous Sky Peak as the arbiter. With that, he jumped into the arena, and upon seeing his triumphant arrival, his opponent tried to mock him. But this attempt to humiliate an ancient demon failed, as Chu Xiu, with a cold stare, responded, "This is a life-or-death duel. The only thing that matters is being the victor." After confronting his enemy with these words, the start of the battle was announced. Jian Lingyun was pleased, as the battle had finally begun, and he could witness Chu Xiu's death. His opponent was in the 9th layer of the spiritual sea domain, fighting trash like Chu Xiu, who was still in the 4th layer of the spiritual domain. For his opponent, it would be like crushing an ant. Focusing a great amount of power in his leg, Jiang Meng charged at his enemy at high speed. Without wasting time, he launched himself to deliver a kick to his opponent's head. However, the skilled demon managed to dodge the first strike and used the opportunity to create distance. The opponent noticed that Chu Xiu was fast, which annoyed him. He decided to end the duel quickly. Gathering a large amount of energy in his hand, he formed something like a sword of electricity. He launched all those swords at his opponent, wanting to see if he could dodge this time. The demon Chu easily dodged all of them, using his abilities to surprise even more. Upon seeing that surge of power, Tao Zhao was surprised and prayed to the heavens to protect her brother. She and the others thought that if he kept dodging, he might lose, no matter how fast he was. As he was only dodging, the cultivators grew more convinced of Chu Xiu's defeat. What no one realized was that the villain wasn't taking his opponent seriously. His opponent thought it was impossible for Trash to become so fast. He couldn't keep fighting like that. Thus, he decided to end the battle quickly, certain this time his enemy wouldn't evade him. Using his secret attribute, he charged at his opponent. Seeing the trick his enemy intended to use, Chu Xiu realized his opponent wanted to suppress him. He noticed that his enemy sought to suppress him using sword chi. This was perfect. It would allow him to test his sword earlier than expected. To everyone's surprise, he turned and slashed through the energy barrier that enclosed the two in the arena. He leapt out of the battlefield, leaving his opponent confused as he ascended. Noticing that Chu Xiu was leaving, his opponent was pleased, thinking this showed how weak and cowardly he was. So confident in his victory, the opponent appeared behind Chu, attempting to catch him off guard. He put all his strength into a single strike, hoping to end the duel as the victor. At that moment, the ancient demon was satisfied. It was a trap, and his opponent had taken the bait. Even though the sacred primordial body of the ancient demon was not fully cultivated, he was still invincible against opponents of the same realm, easily dodging the attack. This left his opponent in disbelief, and Chu Xiu unleashed a single strike. It was enough to defeat his opponent effortlessly, leaving the loser's sword stuck in the ground. That scene left all the cultivators silent. None of them had expected him to succeed. Jian Lingyun was both surprised and filled with hatred for the fact that the trash had won. It was hard for them to believe that Zhang Meng had been defeated, especially by someone like Chu Xiu. After all, his opponent was at the peak of the realm, while Chu had lost his cultivation just over 20 days ago. With the duel concluded, the elder declared Chu Xiu the victor, leaving everyone in shock. The cultivators began lamenting the loss of their superior spirit stones and some mystical grade weapons. While they were still regretting their losses, the cunning villain started coughing up blood. This greatly worried Tao Zhao, who rushed to his side. Seeing her approach, he asked for her help to leave, saying it was all part of a plan, pretending to be weak. This way, all the cultivators present would feel encouraged to bet again. Witnessing this, Tianjin assumed Chu Xiu was gravely injured and saw an opportunity. He persuaded Chen Lingfei, a disciple of Sword Sky Peak, saying that if he wanted to save his sister, he should challenge Chu Xiu. Following the given order, Chen challenged the villain to another duel, taking advantage of his supposed injury. Angrily, Tao Zhao protested, saying her elder brother was hurt, yet they still dared to challenge him. Tianjin replied that, in an arena, challenges were inevitable. That was why everyone was dissatisfied and wanted to recover their losses. It was only fair for Chu Xiu to participate. It was evident Tianjin was provoking him on purpose, but Chu Xiu showed no reaction. Continuing his act, he commented that he was injured and that, at the fourth layer of the spiritual realm, it would be dangerous. However, if they increased the bet by 30%, he might reconsider. And with this move, he gained 200 cultivation points. Seeing his greed, Jian Lingyun mocked him in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Tao Zhao grew even more concerned, thinking he didn't know when to stop. He could have left safely, but the villain believed they might as well bet everything. The cultivators around him thought it was the perfect opportunity to recover what they had lost. The ancient demon Chu thought that, thanks to those fools, he was about to make a fortune. The elder announced the new life and death battle between Chu Xiu and Chen Lingfei, which was about to begin. The innocent younger sister pleaded with Chu Xiu to be careful this time so he wouldn't get hurt. He simply turned to her, looked into her eyes, and asked her not to worry. His opponent looked him in the eyes and said he didn't want to step into the arena to fight him, but he had no other choice. Feigning concern, the ancient demon asked why, prompting his opponent to start talking about his sister. He continued saying they apologized in case they had to hurt him. Running, he found a beautiful story. However, it was a pity that he didn't care at all, as he had stepped into the arena and should silently participate. After hearing those words, he tried to catch his opponent off guard. However, his opponent barely managed to defend himself. Due to his sneaky attack, the opponent was annoyed by the lack of respect. Once again, the ancient demon appeared to the side and told him not to worry, saying he would take good care of his opponent's younger sister. He pierced him with his sword. As soon as he finished defeating those things for his rival, he charged an energy sphere. He quickly launched it at his adversary, slamming him into the arena's barrier. Then he commented that villains always die from talking too much, and that was the truth of life. For that reason, it was better to eliminate him quickly to leave no room for retaliation. Desperate, they noticed that the skill Chu Xiu displayed was not just from the fourth layer. It was the living shadow of the mystic class. He summoned 7 clones, using each to attack his enemy. Even though many were angry at him, the younger sister wasn't. She thought it was incredible. He only smiled, saying it was luck. The old demon was satisfied to have gained many resources by deceiving everyone there. He left several people irritated when they realized their storage pouches weren't enough to hold everything he had won. He then asked his younger sister, who had a spare pouch, to lend it to him. When she handed it over, she felt happy. Looking at the losers, he asked if those were the 7th grade Tianyuan pills they wanted. The cultivators who had just lost begged him to show at least a bit of mercy. After gathering all the resources he had won in the bet, he informed the losers that he was leaving. With that, he called for his floating boat to come to him so he could continue on his way. Before departing, he was notified that he was truly malicious and cruel. Because of this, he was rewarded with 200 points. Tao Seo, concerned about her brother, urged him not to let his guard down even for a moment. She warned him that Jian Lingyun was treacherous and might catch him off guard to take revenge. Ignoring his sister's warnings, he left and returned to his room to review his resources. He wanted to see if it was possible to exchange them with the system for cultivation points. First, he offered a sword. A thick, mortal-class sword was traded with the system. After receiving only 1 point, he became extremely irritated. It was explained that as the user's cultivation level increased, the requirements also grew. The user tried to outsmart the system by offering low-quality items to accumulate cultivation points. It was also stated that spirit stones could not be used to exchange for cultivation points. Thus, he would have to sell them at auctions or in city shops that accepted low-quality items. Only then could he maximize his gains. Thinking this over, he noticed the mask was resonating. He wondered who his master was talking to. She was at Peaceful Sky Peak. That's when the master there mentioned she had seen the disciple deep in the skies before entering the initial land. Seeing that his master didn't believe it, she explained that she had witnessed it herself that very night. She asked Master Mengdai if her disciple's personality had changed, suspecting he might have been possessed. Master Lu Shui said she had considered the possibility but dismissed the idea. To reach that domain, one needed to have their own intent firmly defined. Moreover, everyone could only enter the initial land once in their lifetime. This was a sacred rule, and she didn't believe he was possessed. There was a chance he had obtained some kind of unexpected opportunity. For this reason, she advised Master Mengdai to work hard and train that disciple well. After hearing this, Mengdai pretended to agree. She thought she was already training the disciple well since he always sought her out whenever he needed to cultivate and improve his skills. The old demon Chu, overhearing this, thought he would talk about it during the night when he went to see her. Some time later, she returned to the mansion, and soon after, the disciple arrived, saying he wanted advice. Confronting him, she asked why he had hidden something so important from his master. Feigning ignorance, he asked what exactly he had hidden from her. She already knew about the intent of the celestial sword. Placing his hand on her waist, he asked how she had found out. Ignoring his hand, she explained she had been to the Holy Land. The sovereign there could control the spatial rules and understand the meaning of every energy fluctuation within the Holy Land. Pretending to ignore his teasing, she stated that within the Taisu Holy Land, nothing was absolute. He told her he was there to use his own strength to acquire resources. She tried to resist him with all her might. He made it clear that today he would get whatever he wanted. He had nothing else to do, and she would have to help him. A message arrived stating that the user was wicked, once again forcing his master. For this, he was rewarded. He received a superior grade 6 tier poison jar, and his talent increased by 100 points every hour. After 3 hours with his master, the user's qualifications rose to 917. Even though he was on the verge of reaching the 5th layer of the spiritual sea realm, he was still unsatisfied. This was because the effects of his master's fragrance body seemed to be fading. He thought it might be due to the ceiling. He considered it might be a good idea to take further action, but it was too dangerous. He feared her reaction after all he had done. Turning to his master, he thanked her for her hard work in helping him, her disciple. All she could think about was that one day she would take revenge on her unfaithful disciple for everything he had done to her. At the Precious Treasure Peak Pavilion, the villain was buying some items to exchange for cultivation points. As he walked past, 2 cultivators noticed him, remarking that he had gained a lot from the battle. He ignored them, and upon arrival, he was quickly greeted by Chu Xiaoran, an inner disciple of the Precious Treasure Peak. As he touched his chin, she asked if he was there to sell some items. Chu questioned how she knew his intentions and asked if she had learned a secret art. She replied that it was easy to deduce, as she already knew he had won the life and death battle. As she guided him, he noticed that she initiated the conversation and even invited him inside. He knew there had to be some ulterior motive behind her approach and invitation to enter the pavilion. Meanwhile, she observed him and found it odd that, after entering the Precious Treasure Pavilion, he merely browsed the goods. While he thought that even a mortal-class weapon was too expensive, he came up with a brilliant idea to exchange something rich in spiritual energy, like a human cultivator. Just from these wicked thoughts, he managed to earn a silver-black terrestrial-class flying boat. However, he was warned that such a trade was not possible. Even so, Chu Xiaoran noticed his malicious intent. After some analysis, he turned and said he wanted to buy energy recovery pills. This startled her. She couldn't understand why he needed so many vitality restoration elixirs. Promptly, she assured him that she would gather everything he had selected. Once she left, he thought that he still had some superior spirit stones left, and could use them to browse further. Meanwhile, an artifact reacted to the mark on his forehead. He wondered what kind of mystery that bronze fragment held. She asked if he wanted to take another look at something. Holding the artifact, he asked how much it cost. She replied that the bronze fragment was useless, just lying around, and if he liked it, he could take it. Realizing that the fragment might be useful, he gave her 100 superior spirit stones to avoid owing her a favor. He wanted to go downstairs to inspect the goods he had chosen. However, she asked him to wait a moment. Turning to her, he asked if she needed something. She said she had something to discuss with him. He thought he now understood why she had approached him earlier. It was because she needed a favor. Once in a private space, he asked her what she wanted him to do and warned her not to bother explaining if it was troublesome. While massaging his shoulders, she asked if he knew about the Taisu's sacred tower. She explained that the sacred tower was an imperial weapon belonging to Emperor Taisu, possessing great power, and that within the tower, it was possible to test the combat strength of disciples based on talent, comprehension, and resilience. What she wanted was for him to understand that one of the 3 secret areas of the sacred land was Taisu. The wild demon's secret realm would open in a month, and she wanted him to enter and take the test. She explained that, during the tests, the top 300 disciples in the spiritual sea realm would earn the right to enter. In summary, she expressed her desire for him to participate in the test, which would, in turn, help her. She said this while standing very close, whispering in his ear as if trying to persuade him with her feminine charm. Swirls of energy could be seen emanating from Chu Xiu's room. Messages began arriving for the user, notifying him that he had reached the 5th layer of the spiritual pillar realm, then the 6th, and finally the 9th layer. He wanted to know from the system what the conditions were to advance to the 10th layer of the spiritual sea domain. He was informed that the user needed to find 3 rare treasures: Panacea Milk, Puti Divine Flower, and Monster Baby Spiritual Fruit. This caused him to pause his cultivation, as these 3 items were divine class, incredibly rare. They could only be obtained with great luck. They weren't items sold at auctions, and if found, they would be extremely expensive. Even if he managed to locate them and wanted to steal them, he didn't have the power to do so, so he came up with an idea. He remembered Chu Xiaoran's request and mentioned that there was a disciple who had obtained half of the monster baby fruit. He then decided he would head to the sacred tower. 3 days passed, and the bell was rung. At Peaceful Sky Peak, it marked the beginning of the sacred tower's journey, and several flying boats headed in that direction. 2 people were commenting that every 30 years, many disciples gathered at the peak to try their luck. A pillar was shown where a disciple from the spiritual sea domain once made it into the top 10. The elder from Peaceful Sky Peak asked the matron whom she thought would achieve such a feat that year. Hearing the name Yifan, someone with a solid foundation, excellent talent, high endurance, and great luck, she thought it would be interesting to watch. Meanwhile, several other flying boats approached the location. One among them caught the attention of the 2 because of its incredible speed. They wondered who it could be. It was explained to the matron that he was the young direct disciple of the master from Rising Sky Peak. Upon disembarking, he overheard someone being praised, as the master was proud of her. He noticed it was Matron Yang praising her disciple, Su Rushue. Among them was Yifan, who declared that he would also enter the top 10 of the spiritual domain. Chu Xiu thought the young man in front of him was quite arrogant, and knew who he was. The young man quickly greeted the senior brother of Rising Sky Peak and introduced himself as Yifan. The old demon Chu noticed that the young man's name was that of a protagonist. He told the young man it was good to meet him, and wanted to know why his name was so familiar. Excited, the young man explained it was from battles, and he had heard Chu Xiu had won many spirit stones. However, Chu said it wasn't worth mentioning, which made Yifan think he was very cool, so much so that he thought it would be great to have him as a friend. However, Chu Xiu thought he was the righteous and noble type. But then his name was called to take the test, and he bid farewell to the young man, saying he had to go. He left, climbing the stairs to the first trial, watched by many observing his path. At the top of the stairs, the large door opened. It was the first floor of the Taisu's sacred tower. Bright eyes awaited him amidst the darkness. They belonged to a pack of wild wolves that seemed thirsty. With disdain, he looked at the wolves and was annoyed that only they came to welcome him. Unsheathing his sword, he attacked them all and quickly eliminated them. He felt disappointed, as they were just beasts. In the spiritual sea domain, reaching the 67th floor of the sacred tower, he was approached by a woman with long pink hair and a sculptural body who claimed to be lonely. She wore small, very sensual clothes and suggested staying with him so they could both be happy. He was indignant, thinking she was inexperienced. He was a man who had already possessed many women. After getting rid of the woman, he reached the 68th floor, where there were 4 different colored energies and 4 guardians. Each represented a spiritual animal: a tiger, a snake, a phoenix, and a dragon. Looking up, he noticed all 4 were at the peak of the spiritual sea domain. Quickly passing through all 4 at once, he delivered a few blows and calmly proceeded to the 98th floor. Upon arrival, he faced Master Taisu, who was at the peak of the 9th layer of the spiritual sea domain. He knew her cultivation was equal to his but couldn't measure the full extent of her power. He also wasn't sure if she was real. Her expression, when she looked at him after he doubted she was the real one, confirmed that she was. He charged at the first empress, declaring that the two of them would fight. She easily blocked his strikes, which surprised him due to the ease with which she wielded her sword. Chu launched a kick toward Master Taisu's head, but she effortlessly deflected it. Facing him, Taisu easily pushed the old demon Chu far away. Chu Xiao, astonished, wondered how that was possible, given his special physique. He noticed that, in addition to being strong and fast, she had no openings at all. She then gathered chi and quickly charged at him, and he counterattacked just as swiftly. Chu realized her attack was stronger than his. In the midst of battle, he thought it was blow for blow. Life for life, either he would die, or she would. This was his style of fighting. Her attack pierced through Chu, and as he bled, he thought that everything was a trick. Even with him using sword intent, she still managed to resist, even while gravely injured. He grabbed Taisu's neck and didn't let go until she was defeated, only releasing her when she stopped moving. Thus, he completed the test of the Sacred Tower's 99th floor. Chu Xiao now stood on the next floor, facing 4 pillars. However, he couldn't remember how he had arrived there or if he had fought anyone, but that didn't matter. He noticed the pillars in front of him, and wondered if he should choose one. After randomly choosing one, a system window appeared, providing some instructions. He was to learn sword skills and techniques within 12 hours. The more he mastered, the better his evaluation would be. Gradually, the techniques began to fill his mind, and he wondered what all the skills that the pillar could offer him were, but he decided to accelerate the process and commanded the system to consume advancement points. Chu realized that, in this life, everything was different. Besides his sacred primordial body, he also had the system. He decided to master a two-handed sword, believing it would be the only one capable of enduring his power. He began training with an enormous sword and, with a powerful strike, cut through the ground before him. At that moment, a new system window appeared, announcing the first form. Let annihilation bring the end to all things. The old demon Chu burst into laughter, and declared that his name would bring annihilation to all. Afterward, he asked the system to evaluate his new ability. It was an immortal class sword movement style. The system also recommended not testing the second ability, as it was still unknown, and could result in death. In the plaza in front of the sacred tower, Taisu Qiming was speaking with Chu Xiaoran, asking if she thought Chu Xiao would manage to climb all the floors and obtain the items he needed, as he was in a hurry to see Qiming die. 10 days had already passed, and whenever the sacred tower was opened, some disciples inevitably died. Those words made Xiaoran anxious, and she hoped Chu Xiao was all right. As she thought about these things, everyone heard the bell ringing, signaling that someone had passed among the top 10. The name of the disciple appeared on the stone, the direct disciple of the master of Rising Sky Peak. The cultivators, upon seeing Chu Xiao's name on the stone, were astonished. However, Xiaoran was very satisfied, as he had fulfilled her request. Emerging from the tower doors, Chu was radiant with joy and thanked everyone for waiting. Xiaoran was the first to reach him, congratulating him on completing the task and asking if he was okay. Hearing his name and several people praising him, asking for autographs, and calling him brother, made him reflect on how incredible it was when he was the old demon Chu. Back then, disciples had wished for his death. As he handed out autographs, he thought that being a villain who displayed power was too simple and boring. A true villain should be strong and purposeful, committing evil deeds in secret rather than announcing them. He noticed the arrival of elders from Pacific Sky Peak. One elder informed him that the master of Pacific Sky wished to see him. After accompanying them, he arrived at the Pacific Sky Pavilion and greeted the two masters courteously. The master of Taisu's sacred land and the master of Rising Sky Peak, seeing her disciple act so politely, Qimeng Dai found it odd. The master of Rising Sky Peak praised Chu Xiao greatly, finding his performance impressive. Since the old demon was cunning, he asked if there would be a reward for his achievement. He believed that, even without a reward, things could become interesting. Seeing her disciple's greed, Qimeng Dai scolded him, reminding him to remain respectful. However, Master Taisu didn't mind. She asked him what reward he would like to receive. Politely, he inquired whether the master had divine flower panacea milk or baby monster spirit fruit. Those words left Qimeng Dai very upset, seeing the extent of his greed. She explained to Master Taisu Zi that there were many treasures in the sacred land, but none of them were what he sought. Hearing this, Chu thought it would be very easy to converse with that master if he used the celestial salamander seal. At that moment, a message arrived, stating that the user was truly very wicked, unsatisfied, and now desired both women. It was also at that time that he activated the celestial salamander seal and subdued her. A message confirmed that his celestial salamander seal had been successfully used, and now Tai Su was under the servant seal. The total remaining seals was 0. The first seal was with Chi Mengdai, and now the second was with Tai Suzi. He was surprised and pleased to realize he could activate and use both servant seals simultaneously. With that realization, he began fantasizing about how great it would be to engage in dual cultivation with both at the same time. For his wicked imagination, he was rewarded with the basic alchemy book, which he found to be an amazing reward. Master Tai Su gave him the 8 trigrams ginseng, explaining that it would have an excellent effect on strengthening qi and blood. She handed it to him, hoping it would help until he found what he sought. After that, he left with his master Chi Mengdai, while Tai Suzi felt something was wrong. She thought perhaps she had been in seclusion for too long and was now having illusions, deciding it was better to step outside for some air. Master and disciple were in the main cabin of the flying boat when Chu asked the younger sisters to leave them alone. He said he needed to talk to the doctor. At that moment, Chi Mengdai, with a strange tone in her voice, said no. However, when she noticed one of the disciples growing suspicious, she coughed and said it was nothing, and they could leave. As soon as everyone left the flying boat cabin, the old demon Chu, using a sound isolation system seal, looked at her and said it was just the two of them now, and they couldn't waste such a beautiful view. The master, irritated, removed her fox mask and asked her unfaithful disciple if he intended to bother her again. He, however, only saw her as a tool he could use whenever he wanted. He asked her, in her eyes, if he was someone who only thought about that. Angrily hearing his question, she snapped back, saying yes. He stood up and asked her if she wanted him to remove the seal on her cultivation. She trembled at the suggestion. The demon Chu, looking at the bronze fox mask, remarked how effective the artifact was at hiding traces. Chi Mengdai warned him that after they slept together again, his body would be marked, because of her special physique. But since he was good at hiding things, she believed he could also hide her scent. In her thoughts, she was glad her unfaithful disciple knew how to conceal things. Otherwise, everyone would have noticed what was happening. Still, she asked if he had really said he would remove her cultivation seal and demanded to know the terms, since she knew he wasn't kind enough to do it without wanting something in return. That's when he handed her a box, and asked her to try on a pair of stockings, saying that wearing them would be enough to earn her reward. Wanting her cultivation restored, Chi Mengdai didn't think twice and put on the stockings. The unfaithful disciple took the opportunity to run his hand over her leg to see how well they fit. Shocked, she asked what her unfaithful disciple thought he was doing. He asked why she still called him that, suggesting it would be better to call him brother. Turning her face away, she said not even in her dreams. He told her that made things harder. 10 minutes later, however, he told her to relax and not worry. Angrily, she told the unfaithful disciple to stop dreaming. She was a master and wouldn't be at his disposal. He asked her to keep her voice down in this context, or else everyone would discover what they were doing. She told him to stop, as he was exaggerating, trying to hold herself back but failing. In the heat of the moment, she ended up calling the old demon Chu brother, just as he wanted. She declared that sooner or later she would kill him with her own hands. However, her words now lacked the same bitterness. Outside the flying boat, at Rising Sun Peak, Chu walked calmly, as thanks to Chu Xiaoran, he was able to participate in the sacred tower, and now the matter of the sacred tower had been resolved. The information she provided was detailed. The monster baby spiritual fruit was indeed in the secret realm. However, as he passed by, he saw 2 cultivators reading the Celestial Horizon Journal, saying it had been updated. He overheard them saying that the old demon Chu had died long ago, and someone would soon take his place. Hearing this, he thought they were a bunch of misinformed fools. Not only was he not dead, but he was also still in the Holy Land. The 4th person on the list of lower saints had also been replaced. Previously, it was Zhang Xianling. However, they didn't know who Lu Hongyi was, the person who had replaced her, nor whether she was strong. Trying to appear polite, he greeted the 2 cultivators, calling them younger brothers. He asked if they could sell him that edition of the Celestial Horizon newspaper. They handed him the newspaper willingly, knowing he had made it onto the celestial rankings and wasn't someone to offend. He looked at the newspaper and indeed saw the news that Hongyi had entered the lower saints rankings, placing 4th. Another piece of news shocked him. Lu Hongyi was now wanted for betraying and attacking the sect. He then remembered her and thought she was a naive girl. He recalled meeting her a long time ago. They had been lying outdoors, looking at the stars, when she introduced herself, saying her entire family was dead. He introduced himself, saying his family was on the other side of the starry sky and that he could no longer see them. That was when Lu Hongyi told him that since she had helped him bury her family, from that moment on, he would be her family, and he agreed. From that moment, the 2 became family. Using a multi-mile sound seal, He communicated with his younger sister, Tao Xiao, saying he wanted to ask her something. He asked if she could help him locate a certain person. Having said that, he waited at the designated spot. She arrived quickly and asked what he was doing there alone, looking at the moon. He commented that he missed his hometown. She reminded him that 30 years before he went to Rising Sky Peak, when the mortal realm he lived in was attacked by demons, it was the master who saved him and brought him to the sect. She said he was only 3 years old, and, as had been foretold, he wouldn't die. Because of a disaster in the future, he was lucky. Taking his hands, she told him that even though Chishan County had been his hometown, the sacred land was his home. Placing his hand on her shoulders, he said that everyone at Rising Sky Peak was like his wings. However, he thought back to 30 years ago, realizing that Chu Xiu had only been a tool, which was the only reason he survived. And he thought it was the same when he met Master Chi Meng Dai. His goal had always been infiltration. Blushing, Tao Xiao thought that lately, he had been acting differently. He used to avoid her, but now he even touched her. Rising on her toes to make herself taller, she gave him a kiss on the cheek. Handing him an envelope, she told him it contained the information he had requested and asked him to rest. That unexpected kiss caught him off guard, making him blush slightly as he tried to regain his composure. The information revealed that Lu Hongyi had appeared 3 days ago in Dongzhou Empire, in the city of Chang'an. In the eastern continent, in the empire and city mentioned, the smoke of a fire was pervasive. Lu Hongyi, the former lower saint of the Red Dust Sword sect, had attacked and was now being pursued. An old man with a white beard threatened her, declaring that the Ji family wouldn't let her escape. The former saint, unfazed by the old man's threats, delivered a precise strike that eliminated him immediately. Afterward, still floating in the air with her glistening sword, she slowly descended to the ground. A man with glowing eyes emerged from the darkness, asking her what she planned to do next. Without hesitation, she replied that she would eliminate more people. The man with the strange eyes asked if she was sure. She said that if he was an enemy of the world, she would be an enemy too, and if he was a Buddha, she would fight for good. However, if he was a demon, she would massacre the world in his name. Meanwhile, Chu had not yet practiced the skills he had gained from the master of the sacred land. Since he was in a quiet, deserted place, no one could disturb him. A message arrived stating that the Xingzi secret was the fastest secret art in the world, and by cultivating it to its peak, one could decipher great mysteries with ease. However, its greatest challenge was comprehension. After studying it, he realized the secret art was truly difficult to understand. 3 days had already passed. He had made little progress. Then he noticed a presence, and asked who was there. A woman introduced herself as Hua Luofai, saying she was an elder of the Peak of Sense, and asking if he was Chu Xiu. As she approached, she assured him that there, on Rising Sky Peak, she wouldn't harm him. She was just an elder. However, he noticed the Samsara servant seal on her, recognizing that she was Taisu in disguise. He found it very intriguing that she had gone to such lengths to meet him. Pretending not to have noticed, he greeted the elder. She said that after finishing what she needed to do, she decided to take a walk on Rising Sky Mountain. She also noticed that he was putting a lot of effort into his cultivation, which meant he was planning something. He said he would be going to the wild demon's secret realm, as there were many opportunities for growth there. Chu Xiu, glancing at the curves of the elder, imagined that she was very beautiful, which made him feel a bit uneasy. Sitting close to her, he asked for her guidance, as he had a question about the era before Emperor Luo. There was a human considered a great emperor and a demon emperor in an era that lasted 100,000 years. He couldn't understand why the human race hadn't exterminated the demons, or vice versa. It was a question he'd had since his first reincarnation, as he thought Tai Su might have the answer. She said there seemed to have been a great understanding between the human great emperor and the demon emperor. The true reason behind it was unknown. It was said that when someone became a great emperor, they would learn the secrets. He wanted to know if there existed an entity more powerful than a great emperor in the world. She wasn't sure, but before the war era, during the primordial era, it was Emperor Luo's era until now. There had been 17 great emperors, but in the end, they disappeared without leaving any trace in the world. She went on to say that those who became great emperors possessed exceptional talent. Standing up, she said she hadn't expected to discuss the cultivation of a great emperor. It was rather ambitious. She said she had to leave and advised him to work hard on his cultivation. He asked if they would meet again. She said they would meet when he returned from the wild demon's secret realm. A message arrived, noting that the user was truly charismatic and wicked. On his way back, he thought that cultivating the Xingzi's secret required great effort. It was better to find his master. However, when he reached the door, he overheard her nephew asking for help because he wanted silver sand. She explained that it wasn't that she didn't want to help him, but even as Chu's master, it wasn't right to make such a request. Chu Xiu noticed that it was his master's nephew. He often treated Xiaoran poorly. Even though he was strong, he wasn't impressive. Chu thought that since the great nephew wanted silver sand so much, it would be fun to play the fool. He approached with a smile and asked Minga if he wanted silver sand. The young man asked if he had any, and Chu replied that he did and had been cultivating with it over the past few days. He added that he hadn't had the chance to give it to Xiaoran, giving Minga the freedom to lie and claim he would deliver it. However, Chu explained that it was something he had obtained after overcoming great challenges and showed him a sample. The young man thought that if he got his hands on the silver sand, he would be the only one to have it. When the time came, Chu Xiaoran, who wanted to save her mother, would have no choice but to beg him. Excited, Minga asked how much he wanted for it. Chu said 1,000,000 divine spirit stones. The young man thought Chu might be trying to trick him, but he didn't expect such generosity. Chu, smiling, said that as the master's nephew, he was a precious friend. After receiving the payment, Chu told the young man that he still had some left. If he needed more, he could have it all. Minga, eager to monopolize all the silver sand and make life harder for the girl, asked how much he had. Chu replied that there wasn't much left, only a small amount, and kept stacking it until it formed a large pile. He told Minga that if he wanted to buy it, he could have everything. Minga, realizing Chu had tricked him, asked his aunt to intervene. She told him enough was enough. He already had the silver sand. She advised him to take it and leave. The nephew couldn't believe his aunt didn't defend him. He left angrily because his aunt had chosen to side with her disciple instead of him. After the nephew left, Chi Mengdai asked the unfaithful disciple why he had provoked him. Chu replied that he had been honest and fair. Approaching her, he asked what she was calling him. She loudly said, "Unfaithful disciple." He asked if she was bringing up that story again and wouldn't be more obedient. Showing her 2 feathers, he began tickling her as punishment. He remarked that her body had become fuller compared to 15 days ago. He then asked to properly check her body and continued tickling her. She denied having gained weight and threw a fruit at him, which he caught and calmly began eating. He told her that, before he forgot, he wanted to ask if she had done what he had requested. She told him to wait a moment. At Chimingdia's imperial palace, now with the seal on the doors, he asked her where it was. Pointing to a spot, she retrieved the box and opened it. Satisfied, he remarked that, as expected of his master, she was a very skilled craftsman. She explained that, in addition to emitting light, the stones could also generate heat. He told her that if he used the stones to massage acupuncture points, her cultivation could improve. The disciple looked at his master and said she was an amazing woman. She asked if he had requested it only to tease her. Blushing again, she seemed upset. The disciple asked what his master desired, and she said she had made a grave mistake. A message to the user stated that Chu Xiu could now absorb the fortune of powerful individuals after eliminating them. He was pleased because his master's celestial body and fragrance had greatly improved his status. Chi Mengnai thought that her wretched, unfaithful disciple had finally left. She was relieved, as his arrogance had led him to forget to reactivate her seal before leaving. She tried to begin cultivating, thinking he had truly forgotten to activate the seal, and it felt so good to be able to cultivate again. The sensation of power coursing through her body was incredible, leaving her deeply satisfied. She also realized that during the time her cultivation had been sealed, it had significantly increased. She suspected it might be related to the unfaithful disciple, which pleased her even more. She formed the chi sphere in her hands, imagining she would shatter it into pieces. Her joy was short-lived. Suddenly, that sphere of energy dissolved into nothing. Using a sound transmission talisman, he told her not to misunderstand. Even when separated, he could still seal her cultivation whenever he wanted. This revelation filled her heart with fury. She grabbed a doll resembling her disciple and a dagger. Her intention was to stab it as many times as she could. However, she began to feel strange movements in her abdomen. 7 days later, in front of the portal to the wild demon's secret realm, the realm was set to remain open for 30 days. At the end of those 30 days, everyone had to regroup at the initial teleportation point, or they would be trapped for decades. Master Tai Su also announced that after leaving the secret realm, everyone would have to contribute a portion of their gains. The 10 disciples who contributed the most would receive corresponding rewards. Chu Xiu didn't care about the rankings or rewards. He only wanted to get the baby monster spirit fruit. While he was listening, Yi Fan appeared, shouting to get his attention. Chu turned and began conversing with him. That was when Yi Fan asked if Brother Chu was also entering the secret realm. Chu thought that adventuring with someone destined to be the protagonist wouldn't be easy. He asked what Yi Fan was thinking, if something was wrong. Yi Fan replied that nothing was amiss and the portal was about to open. He suggested they hurry. However, a sound transmission reached Yi Fan. Someone instructed Yi Fan to eliminate Chu Xiu at the first opportunity after entering the secret realm. The one giving the order was a woman sitting on the branch of a 10,000-year-old ancient tree in the forest. She believed she had arranged enough disciples to eliminate the favorite disciple of Master Chi Meng Dai. The master of Sword Sky Peak, Lu Shui, didn't want to be blamed or judged as cruel for eliminating the disciple. The second disciple of Heavenly Sky Peak, along with the heir disciple of Sword Sky Peak, were also after Chu Xiu's head. The master noticed she wasn't the only one wanting to eliminate him. Two younger sisters called out to Brother Chu, and one of them began arguing with the other. Tao Xiao asked what Xiaoran was doing there as well and said she had come to wish him luck. Seeing the two arguing, he asked if the two lovely younger sisters didn't have other matters to settle. Tao Xiao was there to deliver the Sovereign Dragon Sword, which he had requested a few days earlier. That Sovereign Dragon Sword, a heavy-class terrestrial weapon, was infused with spiritual chi and could enhance slashing damage. Infusing it with his chi to test its reaction, he was surprised, found it excellent, and thanked his younger sister. She was delighted every time she could please her elder brother. She asked him to be careful. Once again stroking her hair, he promised he would return soon. She asked him not to take unnecessary risks. Xiaoran had found materials to create formations that could be useful, so she brought them to him. Chu found her gesture very kind and thanked her. She asked him to visit her house when he returned. He said that he definitely would, and would bring a gift for her mother as well. When it was announced that the teleportation formation was activated, the disciples were granted access. They could now head to the teleportation formation. Hearing this, Chu bid farewell to the two younger sisters and left. Tao Xiao commented that the senior brother was really in a hurry and that she hadn't finished speaking yet. Xiaoran explained that there were essential items in the secret realm. However, the other didn't want to hear about it. She didn't want her to talk about the senior brother, as if she understood him. Xiaoran asked what she meant by that. She also said that if she kept being impatient, she would get wrinkles and was acting as if she owned him. Hearing those words, the other released a large amount of chi and asked if her rival was trying to provoke her. Meanwhile, in the wild demon's secret realm, cultivators followed trails in search of items. They marveled at how vast the secret realm was, as their master had said it spanned 10 million miles in diameter. It was such a large area that there had to be many opportunities, so everyone decided to form groups. At that moment, Chu wondered if he should travel with Yi Fan to take advantage of his protagonist aura. When a group of cultivators noticed his presence, Chu told them all to stay together. Seeing the commotion and people calling his name, he wondered if he had offended someone in the past few days. However, he wasn't sure if he had done anything wrong. He decided to run, as there were too many, and he couldn't fight them all. Activating his flying boat, he thought the best strategy in such a situation was to retreat. Quickly, he sped up his flying boat to put as much distance as possible between him and the group. They pointed to the sky, saying he was fleeing because they believed that before entering the secret realm, senior brother Jian Lingyun had given them a compass to track auras, and it had already locked onto Chu Xiu. Even if he escaped to the ends of the earth, he wouldn't be able to shake off their pursuit. In the depths of the wild demon's secret realm, the monster baby spiritual fruit could be seen from afar. There was also a giant python, a levelly demonic beast. Chu had to defeat it. Activating the Xingzi secret, he used his most effective sword technique to defeat the giant python. A message arrived, asking if he wanted to exchange a black flower that formed after defeating the beast for cultivation points. He immediately accepted and gained 70,000 cultivation points. Now he was relieved, as he had finally gathered 500,000 points. Another system message arrived, offering him options for improvements, and he chose to enhance the Xingzi secret. Another message informed him that due to the user's contributions, his innate talent had been upgraded. He was satisfied, as he had successfully improved the Xingzi secret technique. He thought it was time to harvest the monster baby fruit, but as he approached, he noticed its color indicated it wasn't ready yet. Another message informed him that his luck was very low and that the monster baby spiritual fruit wasn't ripe yet. Even so, he was content, as he could still handle the situation despite the fruit's immaturity. The messages arriving said he shouldn't keep plotting things and that he truly was the old demon. While gathering some herbs, a group of people approached him, asking if they could join him. They also asked if he was alone. The one speaking to Chu Xiu was Che Mufan. Chu, ever clever, turned to them and asked if they were all there to kill him. Mentally, Che Mufan instructed everyone to hide their murderous intent and not let him notice. The young man said there was no such thing, as eliminating companions was a serious offense. A girl asked if someone was chasing him, placing her hand near her heart and saying he could count on her. He said he didn't know their identities, but there were some people pursuing him. Now the girl, holding his hand, said they could all stick together and help him. Feigning embarrassment, while still holding his hand, he thought they were experts at this game. Chu, looking at the girl, let it show that he thought she was quite capable. The girl, noticing his gaze, transmitted a message through sound, telling him not to worry and just keep pretending. Thinking himself a master actor, the girl continued holding his hand and asking him to join them. The girl grabbed his arm and said that everyone in the sacred land was like family, pressing her body against his arm. After accepting to join them, he asked everyone to follow him, saying he had roasted lamb. It was prepared by his younger sister and given to him before entering the secret realm. He invited them to gather and share the meal. Pouring wine for everyone, he remarked that it must be destiny. Seeing Chu drink the wine first, they assumed it was safe and not poisoned. So, they all ate and drank. Chu Xiu, using fine wine he had taken from his master's cellar, encouraged everyone to drink and eat freely, assuring them that if there wasn't enough, he had more in storage. At a certain moment, when everyone had eaten and drunk their fill, he drew their attention. He asked if those who had sent them there had offered enough benefits to make them agree to eliminate him. Those words took them by surprise, as they thought they had acted well enough for him not to notice. The girl was the first to stand, stunned that he had figured it out. Another young man stood and grabbed his hammer. The old demon Chu Xiu revealed that he had known since the moment he encountered them. Realizing this, they all prepared to fight. That's when he activated the Xingzi secret, and quickly dodged an attack. Stomping hard on the ground, he told them to take a closer look inside their bodies, or better yet, to check what was growing in their chests. The girl asked if he had poisoned the wine. He replied that the poison wasn't in the wine. A message arrived confirming that the poison was excellent. Chu told them that if they wanted to keep breathing, he might give them a chance. They were all willing to do whatever he asked. That's when he threw instructions to them. He told them to follow the instructions he had just given, and he would provide an antidote for 3 days. They questioned how they could be sure he would remove the poison completely afterward. Raising his fingers, he swore on his master's name. If he failed to keep his word, may the celestial principles curse her. Meanwhile, back at the palace, she sneezed while eating a fruit, thinking someone was mentioning her name. In the forest, the girl who had tried to deceive him asked if they had a deal and hoped he would honor it. Calling for his flying boat, he told them he expected good news from all 5 members of the group. Sometime later, in the forest, several cultivators gathered with their flying boats. Yan Ping, a core disciple, asked Chen Mufan why Chu Xiu wasn't with them. Chen Mufan explained that an hour earlier, they had encountered Chu Xiu, but he fled as soon as he was spotted. They couldn't catch him. Yan Ping wanted to know why they had called him there despite that. The young man explained that when Chu Xiu fled, he dropped a scroll containing information about the location of the rare baby monster fruit, which was growing on a nearby mountain. Yan Ping asked why they hadn't taken it. It was explained that the environment where the baby monster fruit grew was extremely dangerous, even for the 5 of them. So, they requested that others go and, if they could share some of the gains, it would be satisfactory. Yan Ping remarked that since the map had been obtained by Chu Xiu, they couldn't let him get ahead of them. However, he also thought Chen Mufan was naive, expecting others to do the work and then share the rewards. Meanwhile, Chu Xiu observed cultivators arriving on their flying boats near the location of the baby monster fruit. It was said not to spread out, as the mist there blocked divine sense. The girl in the group reassured her elder brother not to worry, saying she had everything under control. Examining the color of the baby monster fruit, they noticed it seemed to have fused a soul with a demonic fruit. They thought they could become rich, estimating its value at no less than 10,000 divine spirit stones if sold. However, the group leader cautioned them to wait, as the spiritual fruit's color wasn't quite right. The girl wanted to know what they could do, as they didn't have time to wait for it to ripen. Just as she said that, an aura began enveloping them from below, surrounding the air around them. The girl quickly recognized it as an illusory angel. Though unsure how it was happening, she covered her mouth and nose. However, the young man behind her inhaled it, and seemed to be in great pain and agony. Moments later, he lunged at the girl, declaring he would eliminate her. He had turned into a cursed beast. The entire group started fighting each other, each driven by reasons caused by the illusion. Every member had a different motive. The leader of the group ordered them to stop, as he didn't think it was right. However, they all met the same fate in the end. After everything was over, the red liquid was absorbed by the monster baby fruit. 30 minutes after the commotion, Chu Xiu climbed down from the tree to take a closer look at what had happened. He hadn't thought that for the monster baby spiritual fruit to mature, it would need to absorb the life force of human creatures. However, it still seemed to need more strength to become fully ripe. That didn't matter though. He could wait a few more days. It wouldn't make much of a difference. 2 days later, Chen Wufan's group looked at the mountain and wondered what had happened to everyone. They were startled when they came across Chu Xiu, who asked why they hadn't climbed the mountain. They replied that they had sent some people to collect the spiritual fruit, as per his instructions. The old demon Chu looked at them with boredom, as they were not only cowards but also thought they could make demands. But as he considered the people in front of him, he noticed a strange presence approaching. It was heading straight for him, a demonic aura. Angry, he asked if they had brought demons to the area. In their defense, they claimed they had no connection to the demon race. Quickly, demons riding giant buffaloes with bizarre eyes approached the group. These were enormous beasts, shouting that they would eliminate them for the sake of their race and tribe. Chu thought it was strange, as it had been 10 days since he entered the secret realm, and this was the 3rd time he had seen them. Judging by the situation, it seemed like the other races in that place were hunting them. He activated his sword and launched himself at all of them, intending to eliminate them quickly. After delivering several strikes, he made the demons realize the combat strength of this human. Chu placed his sword near the neck of one of them and asked why the group of demons had appeared so suddenly. The demon refused to speak. Chu warned that he would persuade him slowly until he got the information he wanted. The demon confessed that they had originally been sealed in the wild demon's secret realm by Emperor Taisu. They had received orders from a demon in the divine domain to retrieve something. Chu found this interesting, as he hadn't known there was a demon in the divine domain. It seemed the depths of the secret realm were treacherous indeed. Chu Xiu eliminated that demon as a lesson for the others. Those who saw Brother Neo couldn't believe he had been defeated so easily. This caused the demons great shock, and Chu, looking at Qin, assigned him the task of eliminating the lower-level demons. A girl asked if he could help remove the poison before he could even thank her for reminding him. He commented that his word was final. After saying this, he handed her a bottle containing an antidote. Now aboard his flying boat, he announced that he was going ahead and wished Qin Mufan's group good luck. The demons grew excited, as the strongest among them was leaving only the poisoned ones behind. A pig demon grabbed a woman and declared that she was a beautiful human. While flying in his boat, Chu thought about how the monster baby spiritual fruits still needed 2 more days. He also spotted Yifan below, loudly proclaiming that he had found the place. Hearing this, Chu became intrigued. The young man announced that it had taken a long time, but he had found the treasure, a hair of the demon emperor. Now, he just needed to enter the scorching cave and retrieve the treasure. He believed he was very lucky. However, the old demon Chu Xiu, watching him, thought that, to Yifan's misfortune, he was also there. Passing close to him, Chu silently thanked him for going ahead and clearing the path. Yifan felt something but couldn't pinpoint what it was. He brushed it off and continued studying his map. Meanwhile, inside the scorching cave, Chu used a bottle to collect a liquid and a versatile stone, knowing their high value. He also couldn't resist collecting high-grade immortal herbs. As he gathered the herbs, his luck points accumulated. After a minute, he noticed his luck had rapidly increased. He even thought he might have taken advantage of Yifan's protagonist destiny aura. Thinking this, a message arrived stating that he had absorbed someone else's luck. He didn't care, as he now had thousands of immortal earthly spiritual herbs and 3 bottles full of stone liquid. However, something caught his attention. Turning around, he noticed 2 treasures in plain sight. They were undoubtedly the most valuable treasures in the cave. He also noticed a giant serpent atop them. It was at the peak of the divine domain. A white serpent was hidden there, guarding the treasures, but he intended to take it quickly without her noticing. However, when he looked back, Yifan had triggered the trap. Realizing what he had done, Yifan greeted brother Chu Xiu and remarked on the coincidence of meeting again. Chu was furious because Yifan had activated the white serpent's trap by not watching his steps. Now they would have to face the wrath of the white serpent. Chu thought he needed to grab the treasures and leave quickly to avoid trouble. After collecting his treasures, he exited as swiftly as he had entered, leaving the hero behind to deal with the difficult situation between himself and the white serpent. Meanwhile, some masters were gathered cultivating when an elder arrived with urgent news. Anxious, he announced that something terrible had happened. A large number of disciple tokens had shattered. Qi Mengdai asked how many tokens had broken in total. The elder reported that 775 tokens had shattered. Nervously, she asked about the token of her disciple, Chu Xiu. The elder assured her that his token remained intact. She commented that a major incident must have occurred within the wild demon's secret realm, as it was unprecedented for so many disciples to lose their lives in all these years. She found it odd. Though she cared about that unfaithful disciple, she thought it would be better if he were dead. Taisu calmed everyone, saying she would use the illusory eye to take a look at the situation. Quickly, she dispersed several of those eyes throughout the wild demon's secret realm. Some humans noticed that they were being watched from outside the secret realm. The demons also noticed that the human race was observing and might have intentions of attacking. In the main fortress of the demon race, the Scarlet Shark Demon, standing atop a rock, told his kin not to worry since they couldn't be attacked from outside. He commented that the human race could only watch from the outside, powerless to act. With a wide grin, this demon remarked that since they wanted to watch, he would give them a grand show. Raising his sword high, the Scarlet Shark Demon shouted that it was for the tribe and their freedom. As he yelled, he noticed the mirror reacting. The other half of the mirror had appeared. If they managed to retrieve the other half and combine them, they would be able to break the seal of the secret realm. Through the images provided by the illusory eye, the humans could see that the demon clan was rebelling. Outraged, a disciple wanted to know how a demon imprisoned in the secret realm had reached the peak of the divine realm. Chi Mengdai was worried about arranging a way to extract the disciples from the secret realm. Taisu asked if she was truly that concerned about her disciple. Chi Mengdai, in her thoughts, denied caring about the traitor, saying she was only worried about the other disciples. Taisu reassured her, saying that preparations had already been made and the arrangement would be ready in 2 days. It was stated that if they couldn't hold out for 2 days, it would be truly disappointing. She was deeply worried, and tried to delude herself into thinking it would be better if her traitorous disciple were killed by a demon. In the wild demon's secret realm, demons were chasing a girl who was carrying another person on her back. This was Surushue, the heir disciple of Yunfeng, the master of consciousness Sky Peak. Chu thought that if he let someone die, even though he could save them while being observed by the illusory eye, all his plans would be ruined. Drawing his sword, he thought they should consider themselves lucky. With this thought, he positioned himself between the demons and the 2 women. One of them, turning to look, realized it was Chu. Acting like a true gentleman, he told the younger sisters he would help them handle the situation. They feared for his life, thinking he wouldn't stand a chance since he was only at the peak of the spiritual sea realm, and those were very strong demons. Trying to fight them seemed like asking for death. Terrified, one of them screamed. However, something both frightening and astonishing occurred. Chu Xiu swiftly and effortlessly eliminated them all, proving the demons were no match for him. Now, the girl who had doubted his abilities thought he was incredible and powerful. She even considered that if people called him the reincarnation of the demon god, it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Chu Xiu, acting naturally, asked the younger sister if she was okay. She was deeply grateful. He brought out mushrooms he had stored as medicinal herbs. However, she couldn't accept them, knowing the mushrooms were a highly valuable medicinal herb. He tried to explain that the demon clan's rebellion was a critical matter, and she needed to recover quickly. He told her that if she wouldn't take them for herself, she should do it for her younger sister, who was in a bad state, and that she could repay him later. He explained that even if she used the medicinal herb immediately, it would still take some time for her to recover. He couldn't go with them as he had an important matter to resolve. From that point on, they went their separate ways. Placing his hand over half of the mirror, he noticed it resonating more intensely. Cultivators in the square, observing senior brother Chu, marveled at how he eliminated the entire group. Some girls outside were commenting on how senior brother Chu made a great pair with Rishue. Taisu thought Chimingye's disciple was kind and possessed exceptional talent. Meanwhile, his master wondered what the traitor was thinking, flirting while she was worried. At the same time, 2 cultivators circled the monster baby fruit, considering whether to collect it. Suddenly, one asked the other to wait, saying he had heard footsteps following them. The 2, seeing a young man, asked if his name was Chu Xiu. He replied that they had recognized him correctly. From there, the 2 began communicating via sound transmission, agreeing it was better to let him do all the work. They then proposed that he divide the incredible and precious fruit into 3 parts. However, the old demon immediately refused. This left the 2 upset, and they warned him not to force them to take action against his life. Annoyed and losing patience, the red-robed cultivator warned that he would activate a trapping formation. Meanwhile, the blue-robed cultivator used a 3-star trapping formation to try to restrain him. The red-robed man charged at Chu with everything he had, attempting to attack him from behind. To avoid the attack, Chu dodged. Then, he activated his sword intent, quickly drawing his weapon to counterattack. The blue-robed cultivator became furious when he saw what had been done to his senior brother. After dealing with the red-robed cultivator and his long hair, Chu turned firmly toward the screaming cultivator. Within seconds he approached and pierced him with his sword. Looking into his eyes, Chu warned that in his next life he should be kinder and less hypocritical. After both were defeated, the old demon looked up as the bodies of the 2 fell to the ground and were quickly absorbed. After the roots of the monster baby fruit absorbed the 2 men, it was fully ripe. Chu, after harvesting the fruit, thought to himself how difficult it was to obtain the monster baby fruit. He wondered how long it would take for another monster baby spiritual fruit to grow. As he pondered this, a message popped up, stating that unfortunately, there wouldn't be another monster baby fruit, due to the circumstances surrounding its maturation. However, the user was awarded 500 cultivation points, making him eligible to reach the 10th layer. The system informed him that attempting to advance to the 10th layer would require enduring a celestial tribulation. Chu was very irritated, thinking the system had made a mistake, as he wasn't advancing to a higher domain. Even after rechecking several times, it was confirmed there would be a tribulation, likely due to his strength. As he felt the mirror's reaction growing stronger, he thought the other half must be nearby. Sensing a powerful energy, he turned and saw a large group of demons beginning an attack. The largest demon, with red horns and shark-like scales, also noticed his mirror fragment resonating. Watching from behind the trees, the old demon Chu suspected this was the leader of the army. He asked the system once more if it was certain about the celestial tribulation, and it confirmed. This time, Chu found it amusing and had a malicious smile on his face. As he approached the teleportation array square, he noticed many people, some with serious injuries. Many were begging for help, while others asked if anyone had medicinal herbs to share. From above, Chu saw the injured people and realized the demon clan was intent on exterminating everyone. He was being pursued by the demon leader and was about to face a celestial tribulation. The demon leader stood at the highest point, waving the mirror fragment. Meanwhile, his aura was evident. Everyone realized the demons were in the spiritual domain, and the humans were no match for them. The large red demon asked if the humans wanted to live or die, stating they needed to meet the person holding the other half of the mirror. At that moment, Chu appeared with the other half of the mirror. Everything was being observed from the central square of the Holy Land through the eye in the sky. In the square, opinions were divided. Some feared for Chu Xiu's life, while others thought he was to blame. Qi Mengdai crafted several scenarios in her mind, all of them ending tragically for her unfaithful disciple. The master didn't want to admit it, but she was so concerned that she considered using the contingency plan of the ancient emperor. At the teleportation array plaza, a cultivator suggested that Chu should be sacrificed for the younger ones. He claimed it was a sacrifice for a greater cause, though Surushua was completely against it. She argued that they preferred sacrificing elder brother in the hope that the demons wouldn't kill them. The arrogant but impatient demon shouted that he would count to 50, and if Chu didn't come out, they would enter. This left the cultivators desperate. They screamed and begged elder brother Chu to defend them. Chu, placing a hand on Surushua's shoulder, tried to calm her, thanking her for standing by his side. But he said it would be better to leave the rest to him. Chu seemed firm and determined. He stepped out of the local array, where it was still safe, to confront the leader of the demons. The masters, watching through the illusory eye, observed that the disciple was about to face the demon clan alone. Qi Mengdai wondered if this was the choice of her unfaithful disciple, clenching her fists as she watched. The demon leader praised the courage of the man standing before him. Chu, unbothered, opened a box containing the baby monster fruit right in front of the demon leader. The shark demon was shocked to see that the baby monster spiritual fruit was already ripe. He ordered his subordinates to quickly seize the fruit from Chu's hands. The demons surrounded him, intending to steal the fruit. The order was that whoever succeeded would be rewarded. After taking a bite of the spiritual fruit, Chu remarked that it tasted good and instructed the system to activate the Tao scripture. Immediately, several messages from the system appeared. One of them warned that a celestial tribulation would begin in 10 seconds. Suddenly, an aura formed around Chu, atop a lotus flower that illuminated everything. Chu asked if they would like to experience the taste of celestial tribulation. In an instant, the power descended upon them, launching all the demons into the air. The power of the tribulation annihilated almost all the demons, leaving only their leader, who prepared a stealth attack. Chu quickly drew his sword and cut through the sword of the shark demon leader. Witnessing this, the bird observing from afar, shocked by the power of the tribulation, became fearful of Chu's strength. The red demon, furious that his sword had been cut in half, resolved to fight with his bare hands. He charged at Chu Xiu with full force, but Chu easily struck him down as well. Now, the cultivators who had earlier wanted him to sacrifice himself were awestruck. In the central plaza, everyone was stunned to see Chu use celestial tribulation to defeat the demons. Two women commented that they had never witnessed such a terrifying tribulation. Tai Suzi asked Qi Mengdai if she had seen what her disciple had done, the sacred primordial body and the Tao scripture. She noted that it wasn't surprising that his cultivation had been so slow at the beginning. Tai Suzi found it remarkable that he had overcome the sacred primordial body's initial inability to cultivate. She added that, to this day, the sacred land had yet to select a holy son, and Chu could be the holy son. Seeing Qimingdia's astonishment, Tai Suzi asked if she had any objections. She said she didn't, but she mentioned that such a matter should be discussed with all the peak masters since his cultivation level was still low. Tai Suzi said she understood her concern but believed that after his performance, everyone would agree. Qi Mengdai, upon hearing this, remarked that he had a good personality and was kind, though she imagined they didn't know what really happened. Chu Xiu was visibly tired when he returned to the teleportation plaza with the bird perched on his shoulder. Surushua asked if elder brother was okay, and he thanked her for caring about his well-being. Yifan, observing Chu Xiu from a distance, thought to himself how powerful Chu was and realized he had once again become just a spectator. Seeing the small white snake on Yifan's shoulder, Chu asked him what he was carrying. Yifan explained that it was a spiritual blessing he had obtained in the bushes. Chu recognized it as the giant serpent. Yi Fan, noticing something on Chu's shoulder, asked what it was. Chu replied that it was Jitaime and explained that, as Yi Fan could see, it was just a chick. Hearing several complaints from the bird, Chu picked it up and began squeezing it to make it quiet. 3 days later, in the sacred land, Chu was in his room cultivating and remembered that he still hadn't received his reward. A message arrived asking if he wanted to trade a scroll for the black flower he had obtained earlier. Feeling discouraged, he thought that improving his battle law and breaking through to the next domain were two exhausting and entirely different things. He was informed that the battle law improvement was ready, and 100 points had been reserved for cultivation. As he replenished himself with elixirs, he thought he should prepare more next time to enhance his battle law. Looking at the mirror, he noticed it was also ready. The system surely knew how to use these accomplishments. A message arrived stating that the user had discovered an artifact. The mirror was a high-class artifact. Its first function was to reduce an enemy's movement speed, and its second was communication. Noticing he had gained a primordial accessory with free functionalities, he thought he had acquired something incredible. Pressing the button connected to chat room number 17, with 6 users online, he realized he had never encountered such a feature before. Looking at it, he was amazed, as there were no such things on the Tianqing continent. That's when Tao Xiao arrived. She wanted to know about the spiritual pet he had recently acquired, a yellow bird. In Chu Xiu's garden, the two were chatting while the pink-haired girl held the small yellow bird. The bird, angry at the girl calling him cute, told her to show some respect or he would eat her. Tao Xiao covered her mouth and started laughing, finding it hilarious that something so small would want to eat her. The bird, still furious, said that after he became enlightened, he would turn her into a slave, and make Chu Xiu his mount. Tao Xiao asked where he had found such a second-rate pet. Chu told her not to mind the little chick and asked if there was something she wanted to talk about. She thanked him for his hospitality, and said she would like him to share his adventures with her younger sisters. Tao Xiao handed him her token and asked him to please accept it. Seeing this, she tucked it inside his coat. He tried calling her back, but she said it was getting late, and she needed to leave and rest. Bringing the token to his nose, he caught a peach blossom fragrance. While it smelled pleasant, he thought it couldn't compare to the scent of his master's celestial fragrance. After that, he turned his attention back to the little bird. The bird asked what he wanted. Chu replied that he was still unsure if there was a connection between the egg and the mirror. The bird said based on its memories, it was a member of the Divine Crow clan. Chu thought it might be right, acknowledging its Divine Crow heritage, and told it food was already prepared. Afterward, Ji Taimei informed him that someone seemed to have visited earlier but left upon seeing he was in seclusion. She mentioned that she believed the visitor's name was Hua Luofei and asked him to meet her at the same place in 3 days. Ji Taimei wanted to know why Chu Xiu was going out so late. Looking back, he warned the bird. That curiosity killed the rooster, and told it not to ask too many questions. Then he left. As he walked, he thought about how much energy he had spent improving his constitution. Thus, it was time to find his master and replenish his energy while she rested peacefully. When she sensed the unfaithful disciple's energy and noticed he was approaching, she asked why he was there. She asked why he wasn't resting in his room and what he wanted with her. He told her that after so many days apart, he believed she must be missing her disciple. He thought to himself, as expected, her celestial fragrance, just sitting there, naturally exuded an alluring and tempting scent. With those thoughts, he sat close to her, and she asked him to be careful. Placing his hand on her leg, he said her beloved disciple was there, and they couldn't waste a moment. 6 hours later, a message was sent indicating that the celestial fragrance body was detected to be without its seal. This resulted in an additional 200 points being added to Chu Xiu's talent. Messages like this kept arriving, until his talent reached 2,214. He was already getting ready to leave while she was still lying down, resting. As he stepped out the door, his master was still lying in bed, covered in sweat. Her face expressed great satisfaction. Meanwhile, outside, Chu Xiu thought she was a terrible woman. He imagined he should have left her cultivation sealed. While he pondered this, another message arrived, stating it was surprising that the host of the sacred primordial body couldn't withstand the pressure. The message continued, stating that the user was disappointing, even as the old demon with unparalleled talent. It noted that he couldn't last 6 hours with his master and left, holding onto the walls. Chu was annoyed by the message. Chu didn't know what was wrong with his master. He hadn't sealed her cultivation, yet she was extremely proactive. 3 hours later, he was already at the agreed location to meet Hua, preparing a roast. While thinking about how his talent had significantly increased with his master over the last 3 days, he was unsure of Hua's purpose in calling him there. Nevertheless, he thought he could test her, as he couldn't continue forcing others forever. A spiritual rat, drawn by the scent of the roast, approached but ran away in fear upon seeing Chu's gaze. Hua arrived, remarking that he was so wicked that he even scared the little rat away. He defended himself, saying Sister Hua misunderstood. The rat was just shy, he had merely glanced in its direction. She noticed him observing her, and asked if he liked staring at her that way. He asked if anyone was courting her. Hua replied that her appearance wasn't considered the most beautiful in the cultivation world. She remarked that this was why no one would pursue her, to which Chu said they were blind. He told her he remembered a poem. The clouds think they are robes, the flowers think they are beautiful. The spring breeze touches the chest, and the dew falls at dawn. After hearing the poem, Hua said she hadn't imagined something like that. She said the poem was beautiful, but she wasn't as stunning as the description in it. It was good for him to have memorized literary books, as they helped him court women. Looking at her, he asked what would happen if he courted her because he truly liked her. Hua found it amusing, saying he was too young to court her and didn't know how old she was. Looking at her large heart, he remarked on how big it truly was. She blushed, and asked him to stop staring at her like that. He commented that he was merely admiring a beautiful woman. He also mentioned that women 3 years older than men were like gold bars. She told him she was probably 3,000 years older. He said women 3,000 years older were immortals and asked if he could marry her, comparing her to the pearls of snowy mollusks. She asked if he was trying to seduce her. He affirmed he couldn't help himself. Handing her a piece of the roast he had prepared, he asked if she wanted to test his skills. Chu remarked that when his cultivation improved in the future, he would hunt an ancient wild beast, and invited her to join him with a drink. She warned that she wasn't good at drinking. He assured her that the drink was a wine from his hometown, called Maxiangi, a very famous wine. They spent some time sitting under a tree, on a log, drinking wine and chatting. She had drunk quite a bit, and asked if he missed his hometown, noticing something different in his poem. As she continued drinking, he asked if she wasn't good at drinking or if she was already drunk. She admitted she was a bit tipsy. In any case, she mentioned she'd heard he might become a holy son. He asked her what the title of holy son meant. She explained that it was higher than the title of elder. Placing his hand around her waist, he asked if he could request the master of the sacred land for their marriage. She believed the sacred land master wouldn't agree. He said they wouldn't know without trying. In the Taisu sacred land, cultivators had heard that the eldest disciple of Sword Sky Peak, Chu Xiu, was to become the holy son. Many believed he had proven himself worthy, while others disagreed with this view. At Rising Sky Peak, a disciple who considered himself more qualified than Chu Xiu felt wrong. He had fought numerous battles to become a direct disciple of Rising Sky Peak, while the other was silently chosen. Seething with rage, he vowed to himself that Chu Xiu could wait, as he would personally settle the matter. Meanwhile, the old demon was walking through the mountains when he crossed paths with 2 women. They, blushing and excited to see him, greeted elder brother Chu Xiu, who continued walking until he spotted a chalet ahead, where 2 women were discussing the master of the 4th blade of the infinite blade realm. Also present was a young man with the physique of a divine emperor, from the Jiang family, who sought to defeat the Holy Sun. It was said that even the legendary Tai Path Constitution, known for being invincible, had reappeared. The 2 women doubted the Holy Sun, believing he would be easily defeated, tarnishing the honor of the Holy Land. Chu Xiu, overhearing their conversation, concluded that it was just as Sister Hua had mentioned. He also recalled his strong connection with the Boundless Blade Realm and events from 20 years ago. At that time, he fought 2 twin brothers who had looked down on someone without a sect. Using his characteristic style, he reprimanded them, which resulted in his being barred from entering the Yi Huang Tower. However, in the end, he defeated them in the middle of the West Lake. The twin sister, named Feng Xiaoyi, sought revenge, ambushing him in the forest. Chu Xiu still remembered the hatred in her eyes. After that, cultivators from the Boundless Blade Realm fiercely pursued him. At the Scroll Pavilion, he noticed light emanating from a formation created by someone at the peak of the 7th grade. Clenching his fists, he thought that even a superior saint would perish if trapped there, requiring immense effort to escape. However, the elder guardian, Su Jin, warned him that he was mistaken, as the formation had been created by an emperor. She confidently stated that even with great effort, a superior saint would emerge gravely injured. Quickly, Chu Xiu bowed respectfully, introducing himself as a direct disciple of the Rising Sky Peak Master. He apologized for disturbing elder sister Su Jin and requested she open the scroll pavilion's door. Observing the woman before him, he noted her natural beauty. Inside the pavilion, Chu Xiu marveled at a library brimming with knowledge. Stopping to observe the disciples' rules, he noticed that only the Holy Master and ancient Holy Masters were permitted on the 9th floor. While exploring the area, he encountered Yi Fan, who was trying to persuade the elder to let him take the 3 Kings cultivation technique. The problem was that he didn't have enough contribution points. The elder warned him that without the necessary points, he would need to acquire them before returning. Yi Fan insisted, asking if she could make an exception, but frustrated, he returned the book. Noticing Chu Xiu's presence, Yi Fan greeted him enthusiastically, asking to borrow some contribution points. Chu Xiu politely refused, explaining that he also needed scrolls, and apologized. Observing Yi Fan's interest in the technique, Chu Xiu suspected it was truly valuable. Once Yi Fan left, Chu Xiu asked the elder how many contribution points were required for the Three Kings body cultivation technique. The elder informed him that the scroll cost 50,000 contribution points. However, since it was Chu Xiu, he could study it on site without removing it from the pavilion. Chu Xiu thanked her for the courtesy, thinking his reputation in the Holy Land granted him privileges. The elder handed him the scroll, noting that while the rules were strict, exceptions could be made, allowing him to study it in a cultivation room. Inside the room, Chu Xiu began examining the scroll. The celestial grade body cultivation technique seemed intriguing, and he couldn't understand why Yi Fan desired it so much. While flipping through it, he noticed one page was thicker than the others. Surprised, he realized Yi Fan had identified this just by glancing at it, which indicated he might possess the golden eye. Using a special ability, Chu Xiu extracted what was hidden within the page, revealing celestial silk. According to legends, celestial silk was incredibly strong and invaluable, something unseen for millions of years, making it rare in the current era. Although there was little material, the notes highlighted the extraordinary nature of celestial silk, and Chu Xiu considered himself fortunate to find it. Chu Xiu decided to understand the technique and began cultivating it. A message appeared. It stated that the user had grasped the intent behind the Human Emperor Fist and could now use cultivation points. The Human Emperor Fist was a skill that, beyond the divine class, could break anything. After cultivating and understanding it, he thought the ability to shatter and destroy formations was incredibly powerful. He considered that when his cultivation reached the necessary level, he would combine the skill with his sword and become invincible. Looking at the piece of silk, he thought Yi Fan seemed very friendly with Jian Lingyun and might send him a gift. Taking a map of a highly dangerous location, he wrote a note advising him not to venture there alone. He thought that brother Yi Fan carried a lot of luck, so he wouldn't die easily, unlike Jian Lingyun. Placing the map with the location inside the book that previously held the silk, he thought that, in his good mood, he would learn some lessons from his master. As he peeked through the window, he witnessed a strange scene. She was holding a doll resembling him and something sharp. Seeing her animatedly poking the little doll and yelling that he was an unfaithful disciple, Chu decided to give her a scare. He entered abruptly, making her embarrassed, and asked what she was doing. She tried to hide the doll. Placing his hands on her waist, he asked why she wasn't standing with open arms to welcome her disciple. Meanwhile, in the cultivation room, Yi Fan quickly grabbed the book to check the page. Excited to find something inside, he smiled, realizing he was right. There was a hidden treasure. He now held a map of a dangerous location that Chu Xiu had swapped in place of the silk. Reading the instructions, he saw a warning not to venture alone to the Mountain of 1,000 Deaths. Just as Chu Xiu had anticipated, Yi Fan took his friend Lingyun along to seek the treasure. Standing before a particularly frightening cave, Yi Fan doubted his own strength. That was why he had invited elder brother Lingyun, both for his strength and to earn his gratitude later. His plan seemed to be working. Elder brother was indeed grateful for the opportunity. Jian Lingyun thought it didn't matter if Chu Xiu became the Holy Sun, he would obtain the treasure, and once he did, his cultivation would increase enough to crush Chu Xiu like an insect. After entering the cave, Yi Fan warned that he felt something was off about the place, and Lingyun asked if he was sure. Even with the treasure nearby, they suspected great danger in pursuing the opportunity. Suddenly, loud screams echoed through the cave. Yi Fan, injured and terrified, crawled out, looking back inside. He thought he was lucky to have a teleportation talisman, otherwise he'd be dead. He apologized to Lingyun. He wished him peace in death, regretting he couldn't save him. Frustrated, he threw the fake map to the ground and stomped on it. At Rising Sky Peak, Xiao Yifeng was not taking the news of Jian Lingyun's death well. Even as Wu Hengyan, the third disciple, explained that he had apparently gone adventuring with Yi Fan, she remained concerned about the second disciple, suggesting they ask the master for some medication. Chu Xiu arrived quietly and asked if his younger brother and sister were having a chat. The silver-haired disciple grew irritated at elder brother Chu Xiu's arrival, saying that lately, Chu seemed to have incredible luck. He then shared the news of Jian Lingyun's accident. After the silver-haired disciple's irritation, Ji Taimei, perched on Chu Xiu's shoulder, commented that the disciple was so weak that she mistook him for a junior disciple. This made Xiao Yifeng mockingly ask where the chicken had come from, using it as an insult. He then launched a needle toward Ji Taimei, the bird on Chu Xiu's shoulder. Before the needle could touch the bird, Chu Xiu easily deflected it, sending it back toward Xiao. The silver-haired disciple thought he only wanted to kill the chicken to embarrass Chu Xiu, but upon seeing The owner's stern gaze, he was warned by Chu not to underestimate how difficult that task would be. Before the situation could escalate further, the third disciple intervened, grabbing Chu's arm and asking him not to waste time, reminding him of the upcoming Holy Sun ceremony. However, Xiao Yifeng continued with his provocations, insisting on calling the bird a chicken. Amid it all, Qi Mengdai, using a sound transmission, summoned her unfaithful disciple to the palace. Chu bid farewell to those present, informing them that his master was calling and he was on his way. At Qi Mengdia's palace, the old demon asked his master what matters had prompted her to summon him. His master handed him a robe and requested he wear it for the climb to the celestial stairs. Holding the gift in his hands, he asked if she was worried about him. She simply looked at him and told him not to be so conceited. She just didn't want his death to bring shame. Satisfied, he sat beside his master, placed his hand around her waist, and expressed gratitude for the gift. He promised her that this disciple wouldn't disappoint her. Sensing something off, she asked what he was plotting. Qi Mengnai stood up and said it was nearly time for the ceremony, and they could go together. The bird on his shoulder, noticing that his master was annoyed, questioned the reason behind her mood. His master handed him a scroll, asking Chu to look at it carefully. When he took and examined it, he realized it contained the names of the challengers he would face. Qi Mengdai mentioned the names of the challengers he would face as he ascended. The celestial stairs were the most she could do to help him. He thanked her kindness, and reiterated what he had said before, that he knew she loved him. Angrily, she told him to stop being so presumptuous. At the Tai Suzi Holy Land, the location of the Holy Sun ceremony, many people had already gathered. They saw him and his master arriving on their flying boat, with some cultivators remarking that the master of Rising Sun Peak was as beautiful as the rumors claimed, befitting someone with the celestial fragrance constitution. The great ancestral saint of the Jiang family told his disciple that the man was Chu Xiu, the one chosen as the Holy Sun. The Daozi of Tai Holy Land remarked to his disciple, Shou Yi, after observing Chu's face, that his death was inevitable. The master of the fourth blade from the boundless blade realm noted that Chu's face was 50% similar to that of the demon Chu. Meanwhile, a young disciple, Hao, told his grandfather that he would succeed in climbing the celestial stairs. Xiao Yifeng announced that the ceremony was about to begin, and that the Holy Sun would cross the bridge of self-reflection. Meanwhile, Tai Suzi began summoning the bridge of self-reflection, explaining that it would question him to determine if he was worthy. If the Holy Sun harbored evil thoughts within the sacred ground, he would fall from the bridge. If the Holy Sun's heart was unstable and confused by the mortal world, he would not be able to cross. The old demon Chu began walking across the bridge, noting that it tested the mind, turning the path into something thorny for those with weak willpower. He began recalling his past with Lu Hongyi, when they fled from various cultivators in the forest, covering great distances, and when he vowed to become stronger than anyone else and never again be humiliated. He also remembered when Lu Hongyi was sweet and kind, promising she would always stay with him. He recalled when she questioned him, believing he had become colder and more cruel, and when Lu Hongyi said she left because she didn't want to align herself with someone from the Mortal Sword sect, stating they might as well die together. He thought about all these things while standing still on the bridge. Many cultivators began wondering why he was standing motionless. Even Qi Mengdai questioned it. Chu Xiu remembered when Lu Hongyi bid him farewell, saying she would wait for him. Reflecting on this, he realized 50 years had passed since that goodbye. Afterward, he started moving on the bridge. Everyone noticed that he was moving at an absurdly fast speed. They marveled at how strong his mind must be to cross the bridge so quickly and wondered why he had stopped earlier. Qi Mengdai knew that with his rebellious nature, he wouldn't be trapped by the bridge's mortal snares. She suspected the reason he had paused for nearly 30 minutes was due to memories of his parents' death when he was a child. Seeing Tao Xiao cheering so enthusiastically for the unfaithful disciple, Qi Mengdai asked if she liked Chu Xiu. The uneasy master sat and watched her disciple excitedly shouting for the unfaithful disciple. After her excitement subsided, Tao Xiao admitted she liked senior brother and wanted to marry him. Qi Mengdai made it clear that her objective did not align with marriage, leaving Tao Xiao dissatisfied with her answer. Tao Xiao questioned her reasoning, arguing that since both were single, the master should approve. Annoyed, the master said no and created a seal to reveal Chu Xiu's true nature. For a moment, Tao Xiao felt sad upon realizing that senior brother wasn't a good man. Soon after, she recognized it as an illusion created by her master and refused to believe she could act like that. Angrily, she asked why the master kept slandering senior brother to ensure she didn't marry him. Qi Mengdai began doubting her own credibility, feeling uneasy as her disciple questioned her authority. This left the master upset, as both were unfaithful disciples, and she thought that even when she told the truth, no one believed her. Now, she had to endure her disciple disagreeing with her and defending Chu. Tao Xiao argued that no one else spoke ill of him, so how could she believe the master? The master retorted that others lied. She firmly stated that there was no need to argue, as she would not allow her to marry Chu Xiu. The pink-haired girl grew deeply upset, not understanding how a master could interfere in the formation of a couple. In the heat of the moment, both women heard that the Holy Sun had successfully crossed the bridge of self-reflection. The fact that Chu Xiu took only an hour to cross the bridge left many astonished. They remarked that the heart of Qi Mingya's disciple was as steady as a rock. Xiao Yifeng asked her what method she had used to train him, and she replied that she had simply given some guidance. It was announced that the main event would now begin. Chu Xiu was about to ascend the celestial stairs. The second disciple of Rising Sky Peak wanted to know if the Holy Sun would succeed in overcoming the challenge. Initially, 2 disciples informed their masters that they were already on their way to confront the Holy Sun. Zhui, also preparing for battle, told his master not to blame him if he lost. His master encouraged him to proceed regardless of the outcome. Meanwhile, Jiang Zhou's cousin said he should go. When Shang Gonghao appeared, his beauty caught the attention of several female cultivators. Everyone there knew he sought to gain favor with the Qi family by defeating the Holy Sun. Chu remarked that there were many challengers and, upon seeing 2 brothers, he recognized them as the twins of the Infinite Blade realm. He also noticed a man with the legendary constitution. When Zhui greeted Chu and informed him he meant no offense, only to participate in the challenge, Chu Xiu thought he could go easy on this one since he was polite. Meanwhile, Shang Gonghao tried to draw the Holy Sun's attention, but when Chu turned to see him, he wasn't impressed. At that moment, one of the twins was already eager to begin. He was too excited to wait. The twins of the Infinite Blade realm floated on their swords, moving closer to Chu Xiu. At this pace, everyone attempted to approach the Holy Sun, displaying their remarkable skills. Chu noticed that all of them were showcasing their utmost abilities, full of excitement. But Shang Gonghao reached him first, claiming he was in a hurry and wanted to finish quickly. The cultivators, seeing the arrogant reaction of this disciple after joining the Qi family, hoped Chu would eliminate him. Trying to mask his murderous intent, Shang claimed his weapon was a fan and asked the Holy Sun to draw his. However, nothing escaped the sharp perception of the old demon Chu, who smiled, recognizing the hidden intent. In an instant, Chu moved toward his opponent, grabbing him by the neck with incredible speed. This made the watching cultivators realize how fast elder brother Chu Xiu was. Still holding his opponent's neck, Chu asked if he truly intended to surpass him. He made it clear that trying to show off skills and gain attention like that wasn't a wise move. The cultivators watching the ceremony were impressed by Chu Xiu's decisive blow. Tai Su, using her abilities, restrained Chu's challenger, who protested, pleading for his grandfather to save him. Impatient, she ordered him to stay quiet. Afterward, he fell near his grandfather. Tai Suzi declared that the dignity of the sacred land could not be humiliated, and anyone who tried would be banished. Qing Hong commented that the Qi family had found a good son-in-law, as he was bold enough to appear like that. With the situation under control, Tai Suzi announced that the Holy Sun would continue ascending the celestial stairs. Chu thought that with this, the Shang family had nearly lost their dignity in front of everyone, and Suzi must have enjoyed it. Quickening his pace, he noticed the Sword Constitution twins, who were prepared to fight the Holy Sun. Unlike the Shang family participant, they were ranked first in the dragon classification. Chu Xiu remarked that the twins' name was impressive, but it was a pity they sought to eliminate him. Xiu Yue clarified that it was his parents' fault for giving him the same ridiculous name as the old demon Chu. Finding it hard to believe such a trivial reason, Chu grew curious about their age for them to think that way. The twins concluded that talking to him was pointless. It was time to end everything. When they drew their swords, Chu noticed they wielded the legendary Frozen Moon and Scorching Sun swords. Their combined power was at the immortal level, but with his current body, he couldn't face them head-on. Seeing them advance with their swords, driven by a powerful leader and determined to end the confrontation quickly, Chu cautiously activated his Annihilation sword ability, and then drew his sword, charging toward the twins. When the battle began, Xiu Yue realized she couldn't block Chu's sword. She was harshly pushed back by the force of his blade, prompting her twin brother to shout her name. Moments later, she managed to recover and was now worried, as her brother was left alone. Qi Feng dodged Chu's attack and then declared that they would put an end to him. Chu Xiu, noticing the twin sister attempting to attack him, remarked that although she was beautiful, she was quite threatening. She ordered him to be silent. At that moment, he pushed her away with the hilt of his sword, sending her flying. Qi Feng quickly rushed to his sister and gave her an elixir, helping her recover from her injuries. Chu Xiu moved toward them, determined not to let them consume any medicine. Before the old demon could reach them, the two siblings joined forces to perform a technique. A massive scroll unfolded above them, releasing what resembled a rain of swords. This made the protagonist cautious, and from afar, Zhao, the long-haired youth, recognized it as the clear wave technique. The cultivators in the audience grew fearful of the enemy's fierce attack. Both siblings, seated in the lotus position, activated the technique. Chu noted they had decided to use it to defeat him. With a sly grin, Chu Xiu knew it wouldn't work, as he possessed the sacred primordial body. He then activated the Chaos Purple Lotus ability, confident it would guarantee the twins' defeat. Using the Purple Lotus, he nullified the clear wave technique, repelling their attack. Xiu Yue, already weakened, took the brunt of the attack, causing her brother great concern. The female cultivators in the audience noticed that Chu had managed to suppress the twins using something unfamiliar. Above the protagonist, they observed a golden aura forming the image of a purple lotus. This prompted the twins' master to realize that the Holy Sun candidate possessed the sacred primordial body. He angrily watched the battle, unable to fathom how someone like him could acquire such a thing. Qi Feng urged his sister to leave quickly, warning that the lambskin drum would only hold out for a short time. She replied that there was no way to escape. It was then that Chu Xiu declared that neither of them would leave. Charging toward them, he noted that the two were difficult opponents, but since she was already injured, he decided to eliminate her first. Qin Feng, realizing Chu had bypassed him, shouted for his sister. He unleashed a punch capable of breaking any ability, the Human Emperor Fist, at full strength. Seeing what was happening to his sister, the twin brother shouted at Chu Xiu to leave her alone and fight him instead. However, Chu turned toward him and quickly landed a kick to his abdomen, inflicting significant pain. The spectators, watching the fight, were thrilled to see Chu Xiu effortlessly kicking the powerful twins away. Yi Fan noted that brother Chu Xiu's punch was powerful but felt as though he had lost something important. The twins' master approached Qi Mengdai, arguing that, as a righteous woman, she couldn't allow her disciple to act in such a manner. Standing tall, she told him she would allow it. Tao Xiao confronted the man, accusing him of being arrogant for complaining. Chu Xiaoran remarked to the fourth blade master that the two disciples were very talented. Qi Mengdai, growing impatient, warned the fourth blade master to remain silent if he had nothing more to say. Xiaoran told Tao Xiao that her senior brother was incredible, and that she truly admired strong men. The pink-haired girl, furious, insulted Xiaoran and warned her to stop flirting with her senior brother. Unbothered, Xiaoran replied that strong, skilled men were destined to have multiple women. She added that it wouldn't be a problem if he were with her as well. Qi Mengdai hadn't realized her disciple had so many admirers. Tao Xiao, hearing these words, felt restless and wanted to confront Xiaoran, but her master ordered her to calm down immediately. Tao Xiao, however, defied her master's decision. Though Qi Mengdai appeared calm, she was deeply upset. The unfaithful disciple had caused all of this. On the celestial stairs, Chu felt his nose itch, thinking someone might be talking about him. However, he decided it didn't matter and that he should keep going. The question was whom he should challenge next. A message arrived, suggesting he consider defeating the disciple from the Jiang family first, as he had a special constitution. Chu thought it would depend on whether Jiang was willing to fight him. Turning to look at Chu Xiu, Jiang showed no intention of fighting, believing Chu to be a dangerous man. He didn't want to engage in battle unless he was absolutely certain of victory. While observing Jiang, Chu noticed his reluctance, and realized many people were watching below, so he needed to proceed cautiously. The young man in light clothing and long hair told Brother Chu that he was not his opponent, and asked, politely, to be allowed to leave. Using voice transmission, Chu replied that the young man had misunderstood. He was never a fan of violence. This made the young man think that the old demon Chu was genuinely a kind person. Chu Xiu reflected that among the 5 challengers, Zahul was the strongest, with Jiang being the second. He thought neither of them would be easy opponents, so it was fine if they didn't wish to fight. Meanwhile, Tai Suzy sensed something was off and noticed an uninvited guest at the Holy Sun ceremony. From the viewing platform, she spotted the golden monkey and asked why he had come without an invitation. Laughing, he praised Tai Suzy for always being alert to everything happening around her. He was the king of monsters, Lord Golden Monkey, and Tai Suzy questioned how a monster wasn't afraid of not being able to leave. He replied that since she had worked so hard, he believed she had ulterior motives. He proposed a wager. His daughter would ascend the celestial stairs, and if she defeated the Holy Sun, Tai Suzy would reveal her true goal. If the opposite occurred, she could impose her conditions. She demanded the enlightened pious flower, the sacred monk fruit, and another celestial treasure. Qi Mengdai noticed that these were the treasures her unfaithful disciple had requested from Tai Suzy. Lord Golden Monkey told his daughter, Empress Butterfly, to deal with the Holy Sun. Afterward, they would hold a sacred beast banquet lasting 3 days and nights in her honor. Chu, after climbing 3,000 steps, was beginning to feel the pressure of the celestial stairs. He wondered if he could ascend all 9,999 steps and use the system to strengthen his sacred primordial body. At that moment, a mysterious figure appeared behind him, with red hair and wings, wielding a large hammer. She looked at the long-haired young man and asked who the Holy Sun was. She then addressed Brother Chu, saying he was being sought after, and asked if he had done something to upset that woman. Zahu speculated that elder Brother Chu and the red-haired woman might have known each other before. When Chu drew his sword and charged quickly, Zahu warned him to be careful and not harm an innocent person. Empress Butterfly raised her massive hammer and declared that she would defeat the Holy Sun to join the banquet. She was agile and strong, but he managed to dodge her attack, noticing how resilient her body was. He realized she was already well known, the daughter of Lord Golden Monkey and Lady Butterfly, blessed with an extraordinary body and the divine barbarian constellation, unable to feel pain when struck. She was a supreme being of her generation. Despite this, he grabbed her by the foot and slammed her to the ground. As she hit the ground, she smiled and remarked that the sacred primordial constitution did not disappoint. Empress Butterfly activated her shadow ability, and Chu asked if she thought she could fool him with illusions. He warned her she was too young for that. As he said this, moving too quickly to stop, he accidentally ended up with his face in her chest. This enraged her, and she asked how he dared to humiliate her like that. He apologized, explaining that he was moving too fast to stop in time. Despite this, the situation worked in his favor. Annoyed, she slapped him across the face, even as he insisted it wasn't intentional. The slap sent him to the ground, and due to Empress Butterfly's significantly larger size, he ended up beneath her legs. Admiring the view, he exclaimed how wonderful it was. This infuriated Empress Butterfly, who tried to strike him with her massive hammer. Dazed, he rolled on the ground, trying to dodge her attacks. Spectators assumed he would be defeated at the hands of that monstrous woman. Some even commented on the chaos she had caused, saying it proved one should never underestimate women. Tao Xiao and Xiaoran, seeing the scene, grew worried for their elder brother. Meanwhile, Qi Mengdai suspected that woman might take advantage of her unfaithful disciple. Suddenly, Empress Butterfly began making some unusual noises. This led Tao Xiao to call Chu a flirt, while Xiaoran thought her elder brother was incredibly strong. As he struck Empress Butterfly repeatedly, he insisted he wasn't acting on his own will. With each blow she received, she let out unexpected noises. Even while lying on the ground, despite being much smaller than Empress Butterfly, Chu continued his attacks. This made Zahu realize that Empress Butterfly was acting strangely. It seemed that the divine barbarian constitution had been bested by the sacred primordial constitution. After regaining composure, looking at Chu Xiao, she declared he was an incredible human and that she had already decided to take him. She intended to make him her concubine in the monster realm. Hearing this, he was surprised. Tao Xiao, upon hearing the woman's words, thought she was arrogant for wanting to take the Holy Sun with her. Qi Mengdai thought her unfaithful disciple's luck with women was extraordinary, and that she would need to teach him a lesson. Now standing in front of him, the woman asked him to come with her to the monster realm, assuring him she would take good care of him. In a sweet voice, she added that she had even decided on the names of their future children. Chu Xiu replied that he couldn't go with her because he needed to continue climbing the celestial stairs. Hearing his refusal, she flew toward Master Tai Suzy and asked for her permission to marry him. Tai Suzy, looking at the Empress, couldn't believe she had come to her to ask for permission to marry the Holy Sun. Glancing at the Golden Monkey, she asked if his daughter wasn't too ambitious for wanting to take the Holy Sun. Embarrassed, he scratched his head and said it was all a misunderstanding, claiming she must have hit her head. Opening a portal with his hand, he called the Butterfly Empress to return with him. The Empress asked her father to wait, saying she hadn't yet asked Tai Suzy what she should do to gain approval for their marriage. Her father pleaded with her not to embarrass him any further. After the commotion subsided, the great bell rang, and the second disciple announced that the Holy Sun had climbed the stairs. Meanwhile, the protagonist marveled at how much his body's condition had improved as he ascended the celestial stairs. It was announced that he had broken the previous record and climbed higher than any other Holy Sun before him. It was said there was likely no one stronger than him at the same cultivation level. He heard this as he approached the sisters, who were delighted to meet him, praising how incredible and powerful he was. His master watched everything from the background. She also approached him, looking him over, and said he hadn't done too badly and should proceed to the stage. The Holy Master had already prepared the Holy Sun's seal to present to him. After hearing this, he said he would visit his master later. Qi Mengdai, hearing his words, couldn't imagine what her unfaithful disciple was scheming at that moment. Tai Suzy announced that Chu Xiu would become the Holy Sun that day and that she would give him two choices. The first was that the Holy Land would provide all his cultivation resources and protect him always. The second was that the Holy Land wouldn't provide any cultivation resources, and he would have to forge his own path. He thought the first option had many benefits but would trap him, depriving him of freedom. The second option offered no such restrictions but meant he would lose all resources provided. Thinking he could still obtain resources from his master, an elder Hua, he loudly declared that he would choose the second option. He had no fear of challenges, no matter what they were. Tai Suzy asked if he was sure of his decision. After affirming, she handed him the Holy Sun's seal and token. Upon receiving them, all the cultivators present cheered, declaring the Holy Sun to be incredible. Tai Suzy announced that the Holy Sun ceremony had concluded and invited everyone to the Pacific Sky Peak. At that moment, Chu asked her to wait as he had a matter to discuss regarding Hua, who was still single. He inquired if the Holy Master could guarantee Hua's hand in marriage. This caught the Master off guard, and she asked if he truly liked the elder. Feigning the role of a love-struck youth, he claimed he adored her, describing her as kind, caring, serious, mature, and very beautiful. Tai Suzy stated that she couldn't decide such a matter. It would depend entirely on Elder Hua's decision. She continued, saying that if the elder agreed, she would ensure their marriage took place. Chu pretended to be overjoyed. Now back in Shimingdia's chamber, she questioned him about what he had discussed with the Holy Master. He insisted it was nothing important, that he had merely asked a few questions about cultivation, while thinking about how fragrant his master smelled. Irritated, Chimengdai asked why, if it was about cultivation, he hadn't come to her instead. Chu, pleadingly, placed his hand on her leg, prompting her to call him an unfaithful disciple. She questioned whether he truly deserved the position of Holy Sun. Pretending to be angry, he argued that he had only sought guidance. She said she knew exactly what he was thinking, and at that moment, he threw her onto the bed. Getting very close to her face, he asked why she wouldn't say what she thought he was thinking. With his hand on her leg, he asked if she was willing to let him go. While Chu was moving, it caused Chimengdai to let out some involuntary sounds, and meanwhile, outside Chu Xiu's room, Tao Zhao and Xiaoran were chatting with Ji Taimei, Chu Xiu's yellow bird. The bird remarked to Xiaoran that it had noticed her constitution wasn't bad, so it had decided to accept her as its pet. Laughing, Tao Zhao said she supported the bird's decision, suggesting it could even put a collar on her. Being a bit more meddlesome, the bird asked Xiaoran if she, too, had fallen for Chu Xiu. Ji Taimei argued that its idea was good, and Chu Xiu spotted the three from a distance. Tao Zhao, flustered, began arguing with Xiaoran, telling her not to dare flirt with their elder brother. Xiaoran retorted that the elder brother wasn't hers, so she had no right to say that. As the two pulled each other's hair while arguing, the bird cheered on the fight. Chu approached quietly, tapping the bird on the head and asking it to stop adding fuel to the fire. With his arrival, the two stopped fighting and asked how long he had been there. Feigning innocence, Xiaoran apologized to Tao Zhao, calling her sister. She approached the elder brother and said it was all her fault, and asked him not to blame Tao Zhao. Getting closer to him, she said she had come to congratulate him on becoming the Holy Sun. After that, she left while Tao Zhao insulted her with several offensive names. Chu Xiu thought about how shameless Chu Xiaoran was for pretending to be so innocent. At Pacific Sky Peak, Chimengdai greeted the Sacred Master, commenting that the Beast Clan had watched the Holy Sun ceremony and already knew that Chu possessed the sacred primordial constitution. Tai Suzy warned that this was a dangerous time, but also one full of opportunities. If the Great Holy Seal were broken, the ancestral star of Tai Chi would open earlier. Chimengdai thought she could take advantage of the opportunity to gain a chance to ascend to the Holy King domain. Tai Suzy assured her not to miss this chance, and also handed her the divine Pu tea flower. She instructed her to give it to her disciple. The master thought she was unlucky to have to see her unfaithful disciple again. In the master's quarters, her disciple asked why she had summoned him so early when it wasn't even night yet. She explained that the sacred master wanted him to take the box and instructed him to leave quickly so as not to bother her. Chu Xiu, seizing the moment, proposed she try that technique from the previous time. Chimengdai scolded her unfaithful disciple, telling him not to be so irresponsible since it wasn't nighttime yet. He countered that night was approaching and placed his hand around her waist. After tossing her onto the bed, he retorted that night had already fallen, so there was no need to worry. Night soon arrived, and after the two had performed dual cultivation, Chu Xiu asked the system to show his profile. The system informed him that, as the Holy Sun, he would now receive a fortune boost in sacred territory. Sitting down, he reflected that becoming the Holy Sun was beneficial. His master placed a hand on his shoulder. Smiling, she told him it was late, and he could spend the night there with her. Chu looked at her suspiciously. After dressing, he told her he needed to continue cultivating, finding her behavior odd. He thought her offer to spend the night there seemed too good to be true and suspected she had a sinister plan. After he asked her to rest, she thought to herself that he was still overly cautious. Climbing the stairs of the Holy Sun's palace, Chu Xiu reflected that the master had given him the divine Pu tea flower. With it, he could break through his limits and ascend to a new domain, and he believed he could succeed. He thought the Holy Sun's palace must be the place richest in Shi in the entire Taisu land. While walking and reflecting, he was called by the maids. Turning around, he noticed 4 beautiful women. He told them he would occasionally come there to cultivate, and relied on them to keep everything tidy. Approaching the lake, he noticed a stronger energy emanating from it. Believing cultivation there would significantly speed up his progress. He saw a large lotus flower, perfectly centered in the middle of the lake, and thought it would be the ideal spot. As he began cultivating, a message arrived stating that since the user had absorbed the celestial treasure divine flower, he could initiate a breakthrough. His response was positive, and another message followed. It informed him that the breakthrough was complete, consuming 10,000 cultivation points, leaving him with only 86,000 points. As a carriage passed over the palace, the coachman told the princess that this was the legendary palace of the Holy Sun. The cunning old demon Chu Xiu heard the word sorrow being mentioned. The young women Chun Hua and Chiu Yu remarked that the Tai Su Holy Land never disappointed. It was vast and beautiful. The 7th princess of the Great Ming Empire commented that it was one of the greatest forces in the southern territory. Meanwhile, looking from below, Chu thought that girl resembled Zhu Biyue and might be her descendant. As he pondered this, he was surprised when a pink flower fell into his hand. With a sly smile, he realized it was a signal that Elder Hua was thinking of him. At nightfall, Chu boarded his flying boat and headed to the meeting place to see Elder Hua. Upon arrival, he noticed her standing with her back to him, gazing at the stars, and called her by name. He told her he had received the flowers she sent, and came immediately. Thinking it surprising that he had truly come, she congratulated him on further improving his cultivation. He told her that after the ceremony, he had asked the Holy Master if he could marry Hua. He then asked if she knew what the answer was. Looking down, she said the Holy Master likely didn't approve. He quickly reached out to hold her arms, telling her that the Holy Master had guaranteed their marriage if Hua accepted him. Looking at her, he admired how beautiful her face was while she asked if he truly thought she would accept him. He said it was a shame because he would have to leave the Holy Land to train, and if Sister Hua didn't accept him, he didn't know when they might see each other again. She asked why he had to leave, given that he had just advanced. He bent down, picked a flower from the ground, and commented that he couldn't remain idle in the Holy Land forever. Placing the flower behind her ear to adorn her, he remarked that decisiveness had nothing to do with emotions. Taking her hand and placing it on his chest, he asked if she could feel the heartbeat of his love. Moving closer, he kissed her, and she reciprocated until she suddenly realized what she was doing. Angrily, she thought he had stolen her first kiss, slapping him and calling him a baka. He asked her not to be angry, claiming he couldn't help himself. It was stronger than him. When he hugged her from behind, she warned him not to do that again. He assured her he would give her notice before kissing her next time. Still embracing her, he softly said she was so beautiful, even when angry. How could he not fall for her? When she questioned if he was treating her as an easy girl, she took out a storage ring and gave it to him. She explained it was a trophy from participating in the battle to defend Tianyuan City and said it had a lot of space. As she placed it in his hand, he asked her to put it on his finger, then asked if she knew the significance of the gesture. She commented that it was just a storage ring. What could be wrong with that? That's when he explained a legend about a star on the far side of the cosmos. There, if a woman gave a man a ring as a gift, it meant she loved him and would be with him forever. When she questioned if such a strange custom really existed, he took her hand and began kissing it. She asked if he enjoyed taking advantage of her so much. Annoyed, he replied that it was simply love. He added that his master was also very beautiful and asked why he didn't take advantage of her. Hua responded that it would be extremely treacherous of him to take advantage of his own master. Raising his hand, he swore he respected his master greatly and had never thought of such a thing. She then asked if he had come, just to harass her. He claimed he would never do that, even though he already had his hand around her waist. Holding her tightly, she asked where he thought he was touching, accusing him of being too forward and just a little boy. Taking her hand and placing his other hand on her leg, he informed her he was not a boy but a grown man. After that, he leaned over her, and as she looked into his eyes, her face turned slightly red. Afterward, they practiced dual cultivation for hours and then lay down to watch the stars. Holding hands, he asked her what had been discussed during the meeting with the sacred master. She told him about an ancestral star, a secret realm beyond the heavens, and that its seal was about to open. Pointing to the sky, she showed him the ancestral star known as Taichi, saying it was widely renowned. She explained that it contained countless treasures, but they were nothing compared to the legacies of cultivators. She said it was a great fortune for those in the upper saint domain to have the chance to break into the saint king domain. He asked when the seal would open. Hua revealed that the Taichi ancestral star would open soon, and he wondered if his master would enter it. She needed to break through to the next domain, and he thought nothing bad could happen to his precious master. Smiling, he thought that, besides sealing her cultivation, he might also need to tie her up to keep her in the pavilion. Hua reassured him not to worry, saying the master of Rising Sky Peak was not weak, her strength was incomparable. She then asked where he intended to train. He admitted he didn't know and hadn't thought about it. He was aware that Lu Hongyi had headed north. Changing the subject, he asked if she had anything to say before he left. Approaching him, she simply kissed him as a response. Then she commented that it wouldn't be shameful to retreat. If he encountered an enemy along the way he couldn't defeat, he told her not to worry. At the Holy Sun's palace, the 7th princess and Elder Emo approached to speak with Chu Xiu. The 7th princess greeted the Holy Sun, introducing herself as Zhu Ziyue. He told her she didn't need to be so formal. Elder Emo asked if there was some business for bringing the princess there. Observing a doctor, Chu realized she was a descendant of Zhu Biyue. She mentioned hearing that the Holy Sun would embark on a journey and noted it was a coincidence that the Grand Ming Empire was crowning a new emperor. She said the Sacred Master wanted him to accompany the 7th princess to the Ming Empire. Chu thought Sister Hua was determined to keep him busy and out of danger. He accepted the mission to visit the Ming Empire. The 7th princess felt incredibly fortunate that the Holy Sun himself would attend the ceremony. Looking at the princess, Chu recalled that 45 years ago, while in the Divine Domain, he had accidentally befriended the former princess of the Ming Empire, and they had shared a romantic encounter. Returning to the present, he told the princess that if she had no unresolved matters, they could depart in the morning. He continued reminiscing about how he had promised the former princess he would return for her, only to find she now had descendants. Through sound transmission, his master summoned her unfaithful disciple, telling him to see her immediately. He replied that he couldn't come that day because he had a sore back. She found it absurd, as she was already prepared, but her unfaithful disciple still refused to show up. In Qimingdia's palace storage, she picked up a box, looking at it joyfully. Meanwhile, in the Holy Sun's palace, in Chu Xiu's room, he was diligently cultivating, and his bird admired his dedication. As he cultivated, he realized he hadn't claimed the rewards from his last breakthrough. He asked the system to display everything he had received since advancing to the spiritual pillar domain. He was rewarded with half of the secret art 9 secrets, specifically the Jin secret, and was asked if he wanted to claim it. Chu thought the Jin secret was a powerful healing technique once mastered. Unfortunately, he only had half of the Jin secret art, meaning its effects would be greatly reduced. He would need the rest. Ji Tai-mei asked if little Chu wanted a piece of the roasted rabbit, noting how rare such delicacies were. He declined, saying he planned to take a nap. When the bird turned, it noticed the shadow of his master. Determined, the bird told the woman that little Chu was sleeping and couldn't be disturbed. Ignoring the bird, she remarked that it shouldn't dare block her path. She stepped past it, and as the bird glanced at her dress and saw what was underneath, it fainted from emotion. Approaching her disciple's door, the master asked if he was sleeping. Getting closer to his bed, she saw that he was lying down and appeared to be asleep. As she observed him resting, she gave a mischievous smile. Meanwhile, he dreamed he was in a hot spring. With several women calling him to join them, he jumped into the fountain with them, and everything seemed very enjoyable, until his master arrived, calling him an unfaithful disciple and pulling his ears. Looking up, he noticed her holding a child in her arms. Angry, she said he already had a child with her, and, despite being her husband, he still flirted with other women. To escape this nightmare, he woke up startled, and noticed Yimingdia's presence. He asked what she was doing in his room, appearing visibly shaken. When she opened a small treasure box, he became even more alarmed, asking if she was trying to kill her husband. But upon realizing it was a draconic crystal that she had left there to strengthen his body, she explained that since she couldn't help him much after he left the Holy Land to train, he should accept the crystal as aid. He grabbed her arm, asking her to stay, pulling her closer to him. She called him an unfaithful disciple and asked what he meant by that. He whispered in her ear that the master's gift, the draconic crystal, was incredibly precious. Holding her chin and making her blush, he said that this disciple had to repay the gift he had received. In the city of Qianxian, located in the Southern Territory, inside a carriage, Chu began telling a story about the cultivator Han. According to legends, Han had terrible aptitude, and despite trying hard to cultivate, his results were poor until one day, a woman named Nengong appeared and became his master. That's when the story got interesting. One day, while hunting together, they ended up affected by a unique poison, losing control over their bodies and emotions. Blushing, he told the girls that they knew very well what happened afterward. They found it hard to believe, noting that a relationship between master and disciple was against the rules. At that moment, Chu felt something on his face. The 7th princess asked if someone outside had splashed water on him. looking out and noticing his disguised master. He didn't say anything, merely smiled and remarked that water must have splashed into the carriage. Qi Mengdai, in disguise, thought her unfaithful disciple was utterly shameless. Upon arriving at the Qin Xian Inn, a woman in extravagant clothing invited them inside, and everyone followed her. As they walked, Chu took the opportunity to ask the seventh princess about her relationship with Zhu Biyue. The princess concluded that he must know her aunt. To cover himself, Chu said he had seen a drawing of her with another elder and assumed they were mother and daughter, as they looked so alike. He then asked how she was doing. Visibly saddened, Zhu Ziyue revealed that her aunt had passed away a few months ago while on her way to the monastery at Cloud Cliff Peak. She also explained that her aunt had waited for decades for someone and had heard that her beloved had died. Out of sorrow, her aunt chose to pass away on the same day. Hearing this, Chu Xiu felt deeply saddened. But outside on the roof, Qi Mengdai wondered why she could no longer sense her unfaithful disciple's presence. She had the ability to detect someone's presence easily, and as he slipped away, she wondered why her master was following him so intently. Fortunately, he had a presence cancellation mask, which allowed him to evade her and leave the inn unnoticed. Chu Xiu entered a location and said he wanted information on Lu Honi's whereabouts. The woman before him stated that the price was 200,000 divine spirit stones. Shocked, he realized it would take 200 million superior spirit stones to exchange for 200,000 divine spirit stones. He remarked that the Tianji pavilion was ruthless. She countered that their information was absolute. She also mentioned that many people were searching for her. Chu offered 300 stalactite drops. He thought about how he had received those stalactites in the secret realm and figured they would be useful now. The woman stood up and made a counteroffer of 400 drops. Moving closer, she grabbed his hand, asserting that the pavilion never negotiates. He revealed the vial and told her to take it. She observed it carefully, noting it wasn't bad, and asked if he wanted additional information. He said he wanted to sell them information and asked if she was interested. She told him to explain further. Chu Xiu revealed that it involved the location of the divine text of Emperor Yuhua. He also noted that it would be easy for her to verify with her intelligence network, and he would demand a fruit of life and other treasures in return. He said that once she prepared everything, they would make the exchange. She replied that she would need to gather those treasures. When everything was ready, they agreed to meet in Shangjing City. Returning to the inn, he sat on a bench and, looking up, invited his master to sit with him. She, surprised, descended from the roof and asked how he had discovered she was there. He replied that he could sense her sweet fragrance from miles away. Taking her by the hand, he led her inside. She asked what he wanted and demanded that he release her. He brought her to the bed, arguing that she must have missed him, which was why she was following him. She told him not to be foolish. She had business to attend to in Jiangzihu and happened to pass by. The old demon Chu Xiu remarked that since she was already there, she might as well give him some lessons. While practicing dual cultivation, she, with a trembling voice, told him that they had a problem. Looking concerned, he asked what it was. She revealed that she was about to break through, and the celestial tribulation was approaching. Hearing her words, he noticed a certain noise coming from outside. He inquired about the celestial tribulation, and both of them got up. She informed him she would enter another dimension to face the celestial tribulation. Chu grabbed a vial and commented that the thunder of the celestial tribulation was extremely powerful and that she could drink the liquid if she encountered any problems. Taking the vial, she realized it was 10,000-year-old liquid stalactite. It seemed her unfaithful disciple genuinely cared for her. She entered the dimension, activating her frozen annihilation sword technique, followed by the first form, frozen seal, to attack the tribulation. Then she used the second form, frozen realm, launching it at the tribulation. Next, she unleashed the third form, frozen destruction, but the tribulation pushed her back, leaving her injured. She hadn't anticipated that a 4-layer celestial tribulation would be so strong. It was abnormal. She drank the 10,000-year-old liquid stalactite and focused her chi on her abdomen as she continued battling the tribulation. She advanced toward it, facing it with firm, resolute eyes. At the same time, the protagonist saw the rays of the celestial tribulation in the other dimension. Chu became pensive, hoping she would succeed, as he didn't know what he would do without her. Inside the dimension, she managed to overcome the tribulation and, relieved, thought, "Luckily, my baby is fine." She exited the dimension and returned to Chu's room, where he congratulated her on successfully overcoming the celestial tribulation. He urged her to stabilize her cultivation quickly. She replied that thanks to the liquid stalactite, she feared she would have been in trouble otherwise. He reassured her, telling her not to worry about that. Smiling lightly, glad that he seemed to care for her, she commented that she hadn't expected the celestial tribulation to be so strong this time. Its power was immense and made no sense. The next morning, he woke up yawning, and the seventh princess remarked that he didn't look well. He wondered if it was that obvious. He told her he had been cultivating a divine skill that consumed a lot of energy, but assured her it was nothing to worry about. She praised him, saying he was very diligent. It was announced to the Holy Sun that the princess's carriage was ready, and they could leave any time. He asked about Elder Mo, and was informed that before dawn, she had been called upon to handle monsters. He thought the large number of monsters attempting to infiltrate the human realm was unusual. He told everyone that the monsters' actions were becoming unpredictable, and he believed Elder Mo might face challenges. He thought he should head out quickly, as he might find many treasures. The carriage swiftly flew over the plains. The princess commented on the incredible view, while the protagonist thought it was a waste. He could have been practicing dual cultivation with his master while admiring the beautiful scenery. In the middle of the plains, the second disciple was hiding with 3 female cultivators. Still bitter about not being chosen as the Holy Sun, the second disciple commanded an attack on Chu. Launching several needles toward the carriage, he ordered the Holy Sun to surrender his life. Swiftly, a giant chi hand neutralized all the needles, rendering the attack meaningless. The second disciple was startled, thinking that someone had already stepped in and might be protecting Chu's Shio. The same force that neutralized the needles now flung all of them far away. The princess and the Holy Sun heard a loud noise and wondered what had happened. The force of the counterattack was enough to throw all 4 of them back to the ground. Chi Mengdai asked Yifeng if he had joined the scum of the Draconic Club to attack a fellow brother. The remorseful disciple told his master that he had learned from his mistake and begged for forgiveness. Chi Mengdai asked if he thought she would overlook everything he had done to brother Chu Shio. She made it clear that, as his master, she had already given him multiple chances, but he had ignored them all, continuing in his wrongdoings. Terrified, the disciple asked if she truly intended to eliminate him because of the Holy Sun. Chu Shio, already outside the carriage, observed from a distance as the second disciple questioned why she had chosen Chu Shio, making him the senior brother, and even the Holy Sun. Chi Mengdai asked if the position of senior brother was that important to him. He sorrowfully replied that only by becoming senior brother, and eventually the Holy Sun, could he avenge his parents. With tears in his eyes, he asked why she cared so much for Chu Shio and had even made him senior brother. She recounted how, many years ago, when monsters invaded the district and she was still a guardian, Chu Shio's parents had sacrificed themselves to protect the mortals retreating. To repay them, she accepted him as her first disciple. The second disciple, spreading his arms and looking to the sky, said he had lost because of his parents' deeds. While his master insisted he had lost because of his own actions, he admitted it was his fault for acting against Chu Shio, and asked her to relay a message to Chu Shio. A part of the Jin secret was in the eastern region. After saying those words, in a desperate act, he pierced his own chest with his hands. His master, standing before him, looked at the scene with deep sadness, while the old demon Chu Shio wondered if he was truly dead. He thought his master would never act in such a way, but he figured he could ask her about it that night. In the city of Qing, Mengdai, the princess, and the young women were laughing at the stories of the little bird. Meanwhile, Chu Shio sipped tea in another room, realizing there weren't many monsters. It was merely a story exaggerated. He figured this might have been Xiao Yifeng's plan to distract Elder Mo and get her away from him. What he hadn't expected was for Mercia to also be by his side. That's when he noticed his master had already arrived. He stood and approached her, asking why she seemed so sad. She looked deeply shaken and told him the second disciple had passed away. Holding her hands in fading surprise, he asked what had happened. Still shaken, Chi Mengdai said it was a long story and promised to tell him the details later. However, she mentioned that before he passed, he left a message saying a part of the Jin secret was in the enemy's hands. Chu believed Xiao had orchestrated everything before his death, leaving him no choice but to walk into the trap. Chi Mengdai asked if he planned to go to the Ouyang family to retrieve the part of the Jin secret. As she reached for a cup to drink her tea, she was surprised when he kissed her on the cheek. The always faithful disciple said he would take revenge on behalf of his junior brother, and claimed the Xiao Yifeng family's enemies were now his as well. He added that since Xiao was no longer among them, it was only natural for the senior brother to take responsibility. Noticing her disbelief, he reminded her of when he had declared that she belonged to him, which had come true shortly after. She warned him to be cautious and to remain silent, otherwise she would finish him off. He simply placed his hand on her waist. She ordered the unfaithful disciple to prepare himself and not say anything foolish, then asked if he really intended to go to the eastern region. She warned him that there were 2 cultivators at the peak of the lower Saint domain, and without sufficient power, he would be vulnerable. He dismissed her concerns, claiming he had his own methods, pulling a book from his pocket. He told her it was late, and the 2 of them should take a few lessons together with the manual in hand. They began their shared lessons amidst dual cultivation. Excited for both of them to learn from the manual, Chu Shio became deeply engaged. Qi, already accustomed to cultivating with him, grew slightly carried away, letting out a louder sound, which he silenced by placing his hand gently on her lips. By morning, he awoke feeling completely revitalized, having gained new information thanks to his master. The seventh princess informed them that the saint they were preparing to depart with would need one more day. At the Ming Empire border, the princess's carriage arrived, accompanied by several soldiers. A young man greeted them, introducing himself as Zhu Yunfei, the eldest son of the Ming Emperor. However, the seventh princess thought her brother had been negligent for not bringing any members of the royal family. The prince dismounted his horse and greeted Elder Mo and the Holy Son. The soldiers commented on how extraordinary his aura was, as expected of an elite cultivator from the Taisu sacred land. The seventh princess, noticing her brother asking the Holy Son to follow him, realized he was there to intercept him. She lightly tugged on his clothes, hoping he would understand and not go with her brother. However, everyone turned their backs, and the Holy Son left with her brother. She wondered what had happened to their friendship. Ji Taimei reassured the girl not to worry, saying there was always a reason behind Chu Xiu's actions. After departing with the prince, the old demon found himself with them inside the carriage. Prince Zhu Yunfei introduced the Holy Son to his brother Yangchen, the only son of the sect master, and the senior martial sister from Yujing Palace, Fairy Bai Yao. The system questioned how he knew the martial sister. It recalled a story from when he was the demon Chu, cultivating a secret art in union with his target. The divine soul mark he cast was designed to ensure no rejection when he needed to take over the body. However, it was merely a strategy for him to have a way to return to life whenever necessary. Inside the carriage, they offered everyone some peach blossom wine. Drinking the wine, the old demon found it very tasty but didn't understand why the three were staring at him. After the wine was served, they began discussing the cost of having the Holy Son join their cause. Chu noticed an opportunity to gain more and took advantage of it since they were plotting rebellion. The prince claimed it wasn't technically a rebellion, it was all for a brighter future. Chu Xiu seemed satisfied with the deal, understanding that both sides would benefit. Outside the carriage, someone monitoring the unfaithful disciple saw him accept the offer. However, she couldn't interfere and could only watch what her unfaithful disciple would do next. The deal was sealed. The prince assured him that once they reached Zhangjing City, the payment would be sent. The prince thought that with the Holy Son of Taisu's sacred land on their side, significant changes would follow. It was mentioned that from then on, he would need to continue negotiating with Fairy Bai Yao to avoid raising suspicion. Back in the princess's carriage, Chu requested a change of route, saying he wanted to visit Yunya Peak. The seventh princess asked what he had discussed with her brother, and he told her about their plans. The young woman became anxious and asked if he intended to support her brother's group. Desperate, she begged the Holy Son to save the Ming dynasty and mentioned that King Jinbei was powerful, but she feared he wouldn't be able to resist on his own. The Holy Son said he had a way to help. However, he had a habit of fair exchanges and asked what she could offer him in return. The system remarked that the user was very cunning, striking deals with both sides, and rewarded him with 200 points. Blushing and flustered, the seventh princess clutched the fabric of her robes, promising to give him whatever he wanted. Qi Mengdai was utterly shocked, and the bird on his shoulder was also astonished. Chu Xiu was indignant and immediately flicked the princess on the forehead for thinking such things. She asked if he didn't want her body. Angry, he asked where her mind was to think that, no matter how much of a villain he was, he would never lay a hand on the nieces of the woman he had loved. The master, observing from outside, thought the girl was so young and already thinking about such things. Upon arriving at Yunya Peak, the princess, upset, told the Holy Son he could explore on his own. He, in turn, asked her to inform her father or brother that he needed to discuss the terms of payment. She thanked him for being willing to help the royal family. He replied that thanks weren't necessary since everyone benefits. At the peak, standing near some trees, he wondered why the stone showed no irregularities. When he touched it, a hidden mark was revealed, and a familiar voice called him a villain. Deep within, she always believed he would never die. He realized the voice belonged to Zhu Biyue. Moments later, she appeared before him just as she had before. Slowly taking form, she began to speak. She told him that he was indeed cunning and more afraid of death than anyone else. She asked him not to question why she had come. All she knew was that she would be in a place called Honghuang. Approaching him, she touched his face and asked that, if possible, he help her family in her stead. As she began to fade away, she said this sister had always loved the Wicked One. After watching her disappear, he thought about how this place was mentioned again and still didn't know where it was. He assumed it might be reachable through the Pebble Realm, but one could only stay there for 3 months. His master found it interesting that he had seen a divine mark. She remarked that even she hadn't sensed it. Sitting relaxed on the stone, he explained he only felt it after touching it. How else could he have noticed? She wanted to know what he was doing at that peak. He disliked her barrage of questions, and asked if she wanted to be scolded, pulling her arm and placing her on his lap. Looking into her eyes, he said the place was beautiful and it was the perfect moment for her to teach him some lessons. Saying this, he held her waist. Flustered, she said he was a shameless disciple. With a smile and a determined look, he told her she wouldn't get to rest and that she should join him. Master and disciple were in a Taoist temple, and Shi Mengdai wanted to know why he had brought her there. Placing his hand on the forehead of an ancient statue, it quickly revealed its interior. Then, releasing a box, she asked how he knew there was a treasure inside and if he had been there before. He told her to just watch. Why was she asking so many questions if she wasn't that curious? He mentioned they would soon head to Shangjing City. The carriage flew over the Ming Empire toward Shangjing City. The seventh princess told him that her grandfather Chen had said he would escort the Holy Son and Elder Mo. He agreed, saying they would serve again in the future. After that, he and Elder Mo climbed the embassy stairs. Upon arrival, some observing cultivators whispered among themselves about how kind he was. Blushing, they admired his handsomeness and heart-melting smile. Chu approached one of them, calling her "dear sister," and asked her to prepare some delicious food. While Chu entertained his guests, Ji Taimei also enjoyed the banquet that was being served. He had received Prince Zhou, and they were so close that the Holy Son referred to him as brother. After eating, drinking, and discussing business, the prince asked the Holy Son if he had enjoyed the wine. Chu thought that once everything was finished, they should have a proper celebration. Indeed, he found it to be a good idea. Hidden nearby, observing the unfaithful disciple's behavior, was his master. She wanted to ask if he had poisoned Zhou Yunfei instead of giving him wine. Qi Mengnai told her disciple that he had just been calling Zhou brother, and yet managed to poison him. He replied that if he wasn't cruel to his enemies, he would be cruel to himself. His master told him to keep his method secret, as the idea of a holy son using poison was laughable. He grabbed her arm and said that between a black cat and a white cat, the only good one was the one that caught the rat. Blushing, she told him to stop touching her, and warned that someone was approaching. When she heard a female voice outside, she asked if he had arranged to meet another woman later. She thought that her unfaithful disciple had truly invited another woman despite having this venerable one. He calmed her down, asking her not to get jealous and to hide, promising that this disciple would be hers later. Fairy Bai Yao had arrived to deliver floral nectar. Chu asked her to place it on the table. As she did so, Qi Mengdai, still hidden, wondered why Fairy Bai Yao from the Yujing Palace was there. Seeing the other woman get so close to her disciple, the master wanted to test his willpower. As she observed them closely, she felt that he might ignore the venerable's presence altogether. Noticing a strange ability, she observed that Fairy Bai Yao's eyes resembled those of her unfaithful disciple. He instructed the fairy to find a way to make Zhou Long smell the formula. An hour later, he returned to the prince, announcing his success. Qi Mengdai wanted to know what her disciple had done to that woman. He explained it was just a soul-controlling ability. She asked when he had learned to do that. He replied it was during a moment when they shared some wine together. The poison was called 3 Converging Flowers and was made by mixing 3 different types of poison. He had already made Zhou Yunfei drink one of them. Fairy Bai Yao had delivered the second, and Chu still had the third. He explained that the 3 poisons separately did nothing, but when combined, they caused a significant reaction, reducing one's strength by 40%. Sitting down, his master remarked that even a superior saint weakened by 40% would still be difficult to deal with. She hinted that he might as well ask his master for help. He replied that such a venerable person would never do that. The unfaithful disciple stated that he would never ask for such help. Instead, he had a 7th grade trap array prepared. She was surprised to learn he had so many divine spirit stones. He mentioned he had obtained them from Zhou Yunfei. He added that being friends with him felt like a real tragedy. He then offered her some tea to drink. After sipping the tea he served, she immediately felt its effect and asked what he had done to make the venerable one drink it. Smiling, he said it was floral nectar that Fairy Bai Yao had brought him. Slightly alarmed, she asked if he knew what it contained. He confirmed that he did, explaining that he feared he wouldn't be able to defeat Zhou Long in a battle. Therefore, he was preparing and was about to ask his master to help increase his cultivation. He instructed her to lie down the way he liked and gave her a playful slap on her backside. He praised her for being obedient and for helping him enhance his cultivation to face a formidable opponent. And after drinking the potion, she diligently assisted in the unfaithful disciple's cultivation. After 4 hours locked in with his master practicing dual cultivation, he got up and dressed. He told her she had worked hard and should rest a little. However, he felt weakness in his body, thinking the love potion was too strong to use frequently. As he dealt with his exhaustion, he noticed someone behind him. He thought how inconvenient it was for this to happen now. The 3 individuals at the door requested his help to assist the Zhu family. Chu invited them to follow him to the guest room. Emperor Zhu Yang, with visibly worn features, awaited there. In the meeting room, The emperor told the Holy Sun that as long as the Zhu family could meet the conditions, they would proceed. Chu outlined 2 conditions. First, he wanted 2 items from the royal treasure. Second, he demanded all of the northern king's assets. The emperor saw no issue with his demands. Chu then told them they could return. He advised them to proceed as usual, and he would handle everything in Shangjing City at the Sacred Land Embassy. After a peaceful night, Chu left his quarters, appreciating the sunrise. He noticed his master sitting outdoors, calmly eating cherries. He questioned her presence. She responded that even if he was annoyed, there was nothing he could do since this wasn't his territory. She added that she could stay wherever she wanted, and he wouldn't be able to stop her. Looking at her, he thought she was a challenging woman to deal with and hoped Sister Hua wouldn't be like her. Placing his hands on her shoulders, he informed her that he was heading out and warned her not to follow him, or he'd catch her. When she remained silent, he took it as agreement, noting he would sense her presence anyway. In the suburban area, he walked to a location where he was warmly received. Inside, a merchant dressed in red awaited him. He asked if she had prepared everything he had requested. She placed a package with the requested items on the table near him, saying all the treasures were there. He took the location of the divine text of Emperor Yuhua and slipped it into her cleavage. She glanced down, saw the information with her, and gave an excited expression. At the Northern King's Palace in Shangjing, someone was hanging upside down in chains. Meanwhile, another individual spoke with the true Northern Emperor, remarking that someone had used poison on him the previous night, and lamented with a smile that it hadn't worked. The Emperor, hanging upside down, asked Lord Thousand Faces what he wanted. Laughing, Lord Thousand Faces revealed he wished to become the Emperor of the Ming Kingdom, and claimed the Holy Sun was aiding him. When he became the Emperor of the Ming Empire, he could use a large portion of the population as a sacrifice. He stated that once the spirits were awakened, the Taisu Holy Land would stop the Emperor. The man chained to the walls thought that, despite fighting for the Ming Empire his entire life and never letting his guard down, he had been replaced by a demon. Because of the demon's actions, he would now be remembered as a traitor. He mentioned that he would head to an island, as the Emperor's son had invited the Holy Sun to a meeting. The Emperor was shocked to realize that the Taisu Holy Land was supporting the coup. The demon, amused, said he would take good care of the Emperor's family, mentioning how obedient his son was and how fiery his consort could be. On Piaoshua Island, it was said that a sacred being would be forged within 6 months, and they would host a battle tournament. The old demon Chu asked Brother Zhou if that Chi Wuhan was the same one who forged Gui Yuan. Chu thought having an inter was something he had wanted for a long time. He never imagined that Master would come to the southern territory. Quickly, the King of the North entered the hall, and the Sun introduced him to the Holy Sun. The Emperor invited the Holy Sun to drink, saying it was an honor to drink with the King of the North. However, Chu sensed a demonic presence emanating from the Emperor. It all made sense now why the poison had failed. Demons had an innate ability to manipulate poison. The Emperor asked the Holy Sun if he had mentioned their conversation to anyone. Chu asked if the King of the North was referring to the coup. He questioned what had happened, deciding to see how far the Emperor would go before taking his chance to poison him again. Suddenly, Zhou Yunfei collapsed to the floor, clutching his mouth, alarming everyone in the hall. He showed signs of poisoning and needed the venom extracted within 30 seconds. The false emperor declared that he would protect Zhou's veins, claiming he would force the poison out with his own life. The emperor pretended to save Zhou, thinking he couldn't ignore the situation, or people would start doubting him. Chu told everyone to step back, warning that the smoke was poisonous and could affect others. Meanwhile, the demon in the emperor's body pretended to save the sun. Chu touched his lips, realizing the poison had worked. Now it was time for the show. People began shouting, asking who had poisoned Zhou Yunfei. At that moment, Fairy Bai Yao jumped through a window, aiming her weapon at the man on the ground. But the emperor stopped her, asking if she was responsible for the act, preventing her from striking. Many commented that Fairy Bai Yao had no motive to do such a thing since she and Zhou were friends. Chu activated a seal, causing the fairy to self-destruct in front of everyone, creating a scene of pure horror. The false emperor was baffled by her actions, and just then, someone appeared. It was the former master of the Yujing Palace court. She demanded to know why the King of the North had killed her disciple. He claimed innocence, insisting she had self-destructed. She accused him of betraying her trust, saying she had supported his rise to power, but now realized her mistake. Filled with fury, she launched a decisive attack on the emperor. The crowd begged the Holy Sun to intervene. His master sent a message warning him that masters of the Upper Saint Domain were battling. She instructed him not to get involved and to leave immediately. After hearing this, he bid farewell to the crowd and said he had to leave. Qi Mengdai worried about her unfaithful disciple, unsure of his whereabouts at such a critical moment. As the old demon climbed the embassy stairs, Tai Su noticed the embassy's manager and asked if she was going to fight. The manager replied that protecting the city was her responsibility. When he reached the top, Chu thought to himself that he wouldn't meddle in others' problems. Inside, he found his master upset, frustrated by his absence during such a significant event in the city. He explained that he had been in a meeting with the King of the North. Hearing this, his master summoned him back. She asked if he had met with the King of the North since he was battling Master Jingyu. Placing his hand around her waist, he told her that it was not important, as he believed the king had been replaced. That body now had a demon and was powerful, difficult to deal with, and what he was about to tell her was something very significant. Chu proposed that the two of them flee from there, but she questioned him, as he had promised to help the Zhu family at the first sign of danger. He retorted, saying he was being cautious and that a merciful person like her would know nothing about it. She became angry and wanted to hit him, and he threatened her, saying he could seal her cultivation at any moment. She said she didn't want him to do it because it was still daytime. He replied that doing it during the night or day made no difference, and he asked her to close her eyes, saying everything would turn to night as he placed a blindfold over her eyes. She asked him not to use the seal on her cultivation again, but he said it was impossible, and the two of them went back to cultivate together. 2 hours later, he got dressed again and left her behind. When he left the room, he came across the 7th princess. He asked how the investigation was going. She said she had the information. However, when she looked at his face, she blushed, and she pointed out that there was a lipstick mark on his face and asked what he had been doing. Acting normally, he said it wasn't a lipstick mark, just a kitten that had bitten him. A disciple came running toward him, shouting to the Holy Sun that there was bad news. The soul plaque of the master had broken, and he realized that the embassy manager had passed away. Still in the city of Shanging, in the void, the Thousand Faces Lord was talking to someone in a black hood, and he had eliminated the embassy manager because she had seen the Thousand Faces Lord using a demonic ability. The person under the hood, smiling, said not to worry because they had sealed the space around the city. The Lord explained that, besides the Emperor, there was also the Holy Son of the Sacred Land, but the hooded person ignored it. They said they shouldn't waste any more time, as he was in the castle, and they should destroy the core of the Great Star Formation. The events of the battle between the hooded man and the embassy manager were being displayed. In Chu Xiu's room at the Taisu embassy, a screen showed the unfolding battle. Qi Mengnai commented that, including the false king, there were 2 upper saint domain masters involved. The master refused to run, thinking of the millions of mortals in the city. She told Chu he could leave, but she would stay. Placing her hand over her abdomen, she remarked that protecting peace was the responsibility of a sacred land cultivator. He held her hand and said that, in that case, she should immediately return to the palace. Chu valued his life too much to die so easily. He planned to stay hidden at the embassy and wait for the master's return. She believed he had a kind heart and asked him to stay and not leave. He agreed and told her to take care of herself. A massive explosion erupted above the palace, startling Lord Thousand Faces when he saw Qi Mengdai. Using a seal to reveal the demon, Qi Mengdai identified him as Lord Thousand Faces. With a cynical smile, he asked what difference it made if it was him and responded with his frozen dimension sword technique. She thought it excessive for him to use a divine sword technique at the start, considering it was a move meant to break her attack. Not only did it shatter her offensive, but it also struck her face, leaving her furious. Enraged, she lunged at him again while he mockingly called her a crazy old woman and begged for help. Calling out to Black Soul, he demanded assistance, saying he wasn't strong enough to face Qi Mengdai alone. At that moment, Black Soul stepped in front of Lord Thousand Faces to try to stop the master. Upon his arrival, Lord Thousand Faces admitted it was shameful to ask for help. Black Soul told him to keep quiet, noting how ridiculously powerful she was for someone at the mid-superior Saint realm. He proposed they fight together, as 2 against 1 would make it easier to defeat the master. But when they noticed someone had broken the seal where the emperor was held, they were immediately alarmed. Black Soul ordered Lord Thousand Faces to deal with the emperor, warning that if he joined forces with the master, it would spell trouble. Obeying, Lord Thousand Faces departed, wondering who could be ruining their plans. Qi Mengdai realized what was happening and declared she wouldn't allow it. Meanwhile, the hooded man taunted her, saying there was no rush as their business wasn't finished. Through mental communication, Qi Mengdai chastised her unfaithful disciple, calling him a liar for claiming he'd stay hidden. Now, Lord Thousand Faces was coming for him, and she warned him to be careful and flee if he couldn't fight. He replied nonchalantly, telling her not to worry as he assisted the true Northern King. Despite his reassurances, she was concerned as she observed widespread destruction below. The hooded demon remarked that he knew she had a celestial fragrance constitution, and dual cultivation with her could drastically boost one's cultivation. He taunted Lady Mengdai, calling her resistance futile, and pointed out what was behind him. Proudly, he revealed he had raised the sacrificial blood flag. Looking out, she noticed the flag's activation consuming countless lives across the cities. Witnessing this, she prepared to unleash an ability, but a knight arrived to aid the master of the Rising Sky Peak in defeating Black Soul. She was relieved to see the Northern King, and immediately asked how her disciple was doing. The king replied that the Holy Sun was likely buying time and distracting Lord Thousand Faces. Black Soul, seeing the Northern King alongside the master, realized Lord Thousand Faces had failed to kill the Emperor. The Northern King remarked on the chaos caused by the two of them activating the blood flag. The master of Rising Sky Peak and the Northern Emperor pursued Black Soul. He yelled at Qi Mengdai to let him go, but while restrained, the Emperor seized the opportunity she provided to strike. The Emperor told her they should assist the Holy Sun. Qi Mengdai worried about her disciple, as he was only in the spirit domain and might be at risk. Meanwhile, in the Northern King's palace, someone shouted for Lord Thousand Faces not to flee. Inside, it seemed Lord Thousand Faces was in a dire situation, running ahead, while the Holy Sun chased him with a sword. Lord Thousand Faces begged him to stop the pursuit. So desperate, he leaped from a height, landing face first on the ground, leaving onlookers questioning if that was truly Lord Thousand Faces. They wondered how a superior saint could end up in such a state. They then noticed the shirtless Holy Son of Taisu's sacred land standing on the roof. All eyes turned to Chu Xiu, realizing he was responsible for Lord Thousand Faces' condition. Qi Mengdai, observing through a seal, grew irritated at her disciple flaunting himself before the women. After Lord Thousand Faces hit the ground, the Holy Sun descended with his sword in hand, announcing he would finish him. There was an item between Lord Thousand Faces and the Holy Sun, radiating the presence of an emperor. Chu explained it was just an item containing a trace of an emperor's aura. Lord Thousand Faces admitted the Holy Sun was strong but claimed he couldn't defeat him due to the powerful flag supporting him. At that moment, the Master of Rising Sky Peak appeared, declaring she could easily handle that. Tai Suzy gazed at Lord Thousand Faces with disdain. Chu noted Elder Mo's efficiency, as she had warned him the seal was weakening. Someone thought there was no need for Tai Suzy to intimidate a weakling. Tai Suzy noticed the appearance of Lord Golden Monkey and asked if the monsters felt no shame. They were on human territory to annihilate people, using them as sacrifices, and now they claimed she was intimidating a weakling. Chu Xiu stated that he had defeated Lord Thousand Faces and demanded his storage ring, along with a golden lotus. Lord Golden Monkey thought the ring was trivial but still wanted another treasure. He believed monsters were wealthy. Tai Suzy reminded him that he still owed her 3 treasures. He agreed and said it would take some time. Tai Suzy announced that she would seal the Death Apparition flag for 300 years in exchange for the lives of the humans they had taken. She allowed Lord Golden Monkey to take the fox and warned him never to let it escape again. After taking Lord Thousand Faces, Golden Monkey fled in haste, declaring that Tai Suzy had won that day. In the city's capital, everyone spoke of how incredible the Holy Sun was, despite being only at the spiritual domain. Together, Tai Suzy asked Mengdai where her disciple was, to which she replied she had no idea. Mengdai questioned Tai Suzy, as she had claimed she was out for a relaxing walk, yet was clearly protecting her beloved disciple. Tai Suzy replied that it was nothing like that. She was merely passing by when she sensed a monster performing a sacrificial ritual. Mengdai then asked when Tai Suzy planned to return. Tai Suzy said she would stay a while longer. The two stopped their conversation when the disciple quickly returned. One of them approached him. Chu was delighted to see Sister Hua and asked when she had arrived in the city. Answering his question, she remarked that he looked a bit tired. After that, he took her hand and offered her some tea. She pointed out that his master was watching. Turning to his master, he said he would offer some tea to Sister Hua and asked if she would like to join them. However, she declined, saying she was tired and would not come. As he turned to leave, he told her to rest well. She thought to herself that he was a wicked, unfaithful disciple, daring to flirt with the sacred master, while she also seemed so pleased. Chu Xiu and Elder Hua strolled through the city center. He even gave her a hairpin, thinking it would match her look. She thought it was embarrassing to be seen this way by her best friend but hoped she would understand. Noticing his master following them, he assumed she wanted to join their outing. Qi Mengdai grew annoyed seeing his companion blushing and wondered if he already had any idea who Hua was. As the two continued walking, the master felt uneasy watching them together. For a moment, she thought she might be feeling jealous but quickly dismissed the notion as ridiculous. She tried convincing herself that she was only there out of concern for the sacred master. Meanwhile, a young girl stopped and asked if Chu wanted to buy flowers for his companion. He agreed because the flowers were beautiful, but the beauty of the woman beside him left them all speechless. Qi Mengdai, hearing his words directed at another, found the whole thing repulsive. When they reached a particular place, still on the stairs, the sacred master tried explaining herself to Qi Mengdai. Hearing the mental message sent to her, Mengdai grew furious, finding the excuse absolutely ridiculous. The sacred master grew worried when her friend said nothing in response. Then Mengdai coldly told her to enjoy herself, stating that she would return first. She sat upstairs, sipping tea, trying to calm herself. Nothing the sacred master said seemed believable. She wanted to see just how far this little game would go. Chu served tea to please Hua, who thanked him and suggested he have some tea himself instead of just serving her. Placing a hand on her shoulder and holding her arm, he commented on how beautiful the scenery was at night. Moving closer, he invited her to stay the night and rest, suggesting the journey must have been tiring. Chi Mengdai was overcome with jealousy, watching him place his hands on Hua without any objection from her. However, something seemed wrong with Chi Mengdai. Chu also noticed her agitation. A grand auction was being announced, presenting the perfect opportunity to acquire some treasures. Crowds gathered, and merchants displayed their wares. One of them showcased a glowing blue sphere that illuminated much of the area. Hua observed the light and noted that the asteroid, about the size of a fist, was worth at least 3,000 spiritual stones. Chu noticed the light reflecting off a bronze plaque and realized that his fragment fit perfectly with it. She quickly noticed his interest and asked if he needed anything at the auction. He took her hand and told her she was his star. After kissing her hand, he suggested they go together the next day to watch the auction. He added that they could watch a movie together, and she asked which one it would be. As they were going down the stairs, he saw the master at a street vendor and asked what she was doing there. She turned around with a happy expression and said her teacup had broken, so she came to buy another one. Hua remarked that she could have easily sent a disciple to buy it. There was no need for her to come personally. He said he would buy some drinks and asked the two of them to wait a moment. The divine master told Chi Mengdai that her disciple didn't know who she was and asked her to keep it a secret. Chi Mengdai responded that she should remember her position as the sacred master and not forget it. Chi Mengdai then questioned why they were always holding hands and touching each other. Hua insisted that she misunderstood. However, the sacred master remarked that it didn't make sense to be jealous of him while pregnant with a father she didn't know. Chi Mengdai firmly denied being jealous and said their behavior was inappropriate for their age. The sacred master retorted, saying that he liked older women anyway. Chi Mengdai clarified that there was nothing between them, but even if there was, it wouldn't be a problem since they were both cultivators. Chu returned carrying 2 cherry blossom drinks, a special beverage from that city. Hua suggested that since all 3 were there, they could go together to watch the movie. Chu Xiu said it was a great idea and appreciated how well Hua understood him, as expected of her. Saying this, he held the master's hand and lightly tapped Hua's backside as they headed to watch the movie. Chu found it amusing that the play they were watching was about Tai Suzi's adventures as the Holy Daughter. A little boy watching the play told his mother it was about the lady he had seen in the sky the day before. Chi Mengdai thought Chu didn't realize who the woman beside him was. He thought that the play didn't quite count as a movie and casually mentioned the blue planet. He explained it was like writing the sacred master's story and using actors to portray her. Only then did Chi Mengdai understand what he meant by a movie and recalled the day he recorded the two of them. Hua said it would be worth trying. Someone nearby commented that Chu was very clever. Apologizing for overhearing, the stranger explained he was just passing by and found the idea intriguing. Introducing himself as Hong Yu, he asked if Chu had heard of his family. Chu inquired about the young master's business intentions, noting that his cultivation level wasn't low. The young master expressed interest in Chu's projection idea, believing they could profit together. They sat at a nearby table as Hong Yu wrote while Chu explained something to him. Shortly after, the 3 returned to the Taisu embassy, with Chi Mengdai still feeling jealous. Mentally, she told her disciple to let Hua go and come in with her immediately. Understanding the message, Chu bid Elder Hua good night and wished her a restful evening. As Hua walked away, she wondered how she should address her friend Mengdai if those two ever got married. Meanwhile, inside, the master activated a soundproofing array and began demanding explanations from him. She questioned how he dared to act so casually with an elder from another peak and even dined with her. Chu, always prepared, had brought sweets for his master. However, she took the sweets and said she still didn't approve of his relationship with Elder Hua. She accused him of giving Hua a flower and complimenting her. To her surprise, Chu also had a flower for her, even more beautiful than the other. He complimented her, saying no flower could compare to her beauty. He told her she was stunning and that anyone would be jealous. She warned him that flattery wouldn't fool her so easily. He cheekily asked if they were jealous. She dismissed the idea as ridiculous, saying she wasn't jealous of him. As his master, it was her duty to take care of him. Hearing this, he made her promise to always look after him. He told her she was his wings, and without her, he couldn't fly, adding that he didn't like it when they fought. Chi Mengdai punched him in the face, calling him a shameless disciple. The blow was so strong that he fell to the ground. She remarked that he hadn't increased his talent significantly but seemed full of energy lately. He, feeling emotional but wary of her getting overly enthusiastic, mentioned that certain unusual spells were effective. She made it clear that she was his master and could force him if she wished. He responded by saying she could use force if she dared. Then he said to wait because Elder Hua might overhear. She assured him she had already set up a soundproof array and that no one could help him. The next day, she seemed satisfied, and her skin looked like a ripe peach. She was so radiant that her friend complimented her. Her friend asked if she had taken something, as she appeared to be glowing, and noted that her cultivation had increased. Chi Mengnai thought to herself that it was thanks to the secret art of the 8 trigrams dual cultivation, and had to admit it was useful. Hua wanted to know where Chu Xiu was and asked if he was cultivating. Mengnai said probably. Taking her friend's hand, Mengnai asked if she hadn't returned because she was worried about that matter. Hua wanted to know if Mengnai had looked into the specifics of his constitution. She commented that after the monsters handed over the treasures and he used his constitution, his progress would accelerate. Chi Mengnai, grabbing her friend's arm, cautioned her not to rush, but Hua was determined and believed she could save him at a critical moment. The following day, at the auction tower, crowds gathered to see the items up for bidding. Chu thought he would have liked to attend an auction with both of them, but he couldn't find either one. The elder of the tower, upon seeing the Holy Sun, invited him closer, leading him to the front of the line. This upset those at the back, though some thought they would do the same if they were the Holy Sun. The elder of the tower informed the Holy Sun that the auction would soon begin and promised to serve tea. In the VIP room where Chu was seated, several attendants offered him refreshments. Suddenly, a disgruntled man arrived, annoyed that VIP room 1 wasn't available. He questioned the elder of the auction tower, claiming his brother was about to become the Holy Sun. Despite the elder's explanations, the man grew frustrated, believing the current Holy Sun was inferior. While the man caused a scene, another arrived and asked who was throwing a tantrum. The troublemaker complained, saying the newcomer shouldn't interfere just because he had a powerful older brother. Tired of the antics, the second man, who had brown hair, punched the troublemaker. Yi Hongyu, handing an invitation to the elder, requested that the troublemaker be placed in VIP room 2. After that, he went to accompany the Holy Sun Chu Xiu, and everyone speculated about the third young lord's relationship with the Holy Sun of the Sacred Land. A beautiful hostess announced the start of the auction, stating she would host the event that day. She began by presenting a 10,000-year-old natural absorption armor. Encouraging everyone to bid, Chu started with 100,000 divine spiritual stones. The troublemaker from earlier bid 1 million divine spiritual stones. The second item was a divine herb. Once consumed, it would increase cultivation speed by 1.5 times. Chu bid 200 divine spiritual stones, and his opponent offered 2 million divine spiritual stones. Everyone wondered who the person in VIP room 2 was, openly provoking the Holy Sun. The hostess displayed and explained the next item, a piece of asteroid ore. Next to it was a bronze plaque of unknown use, and she invited the bidding to begin. Several cultivators started with bids of 50,000, which soon climbed to 55,000. Chu then offered 200,000 divine spiritual stones. His opponent bid 1.2 million. Chu noticed that the broken bronze plaque was made of the same material as the bronze fragment. His grandfather had left him before he died. He believed it held some answers. Chu Xiu bid 1.3 million and thought the opponent could have the rest, but the plaque had to be his. The opponent bid 1.4 million, thinking competing with him was pointless. Chu realized he had 3 million initially, but after spending some on ingredients for poison, he only had 2 million divine spiritual stones left. He placed a bid of that amount. His opponent in the auction offered 2 million and 1 divine spiritual stone, as it was all the stones he had received from his master, and knew he would be scolded upon his return. The hostess asked if anyone would bid higher than 2 million and 1 divine spiritual stone. She asked if the Sacred Land Taisu wouldn't counter the bid, and everyone realized that Sacred Tai wasn't an easy target. The hostess congratulated and praised Zhou Yu for acquiring the asteroid ore and the bronze plaque. The young man, having obtained what he wanted, was eager to leave, thinking the other items were unnecessary. Chu Xiu quickly stood up, saying he had business to attend to, and bid farewell to Brother Yi. Zhou Yu returned satisfied with the treasure he acquired on his flying ship, suspecting that Chu Xiu held the bronze fragment that completed the plate. However, he wisely withdrew before the auction ended to avoid incidents. Nonetheless, Chu appeared on a nearby ship, declaring that, as someone from the sacred land of Taisu, he intended to borrow something. He wasn't alone. Elder Mo accompanied him. Zhou Yu argued that the auction had been fair and couldn't understand why the Holy Sun was blocking their way and demanding an item. Chu stated he wasn't forcing anyone, only borrowing something from the master. That was all. Zhou Yu thought that if Chu took it, he'd never return it, and those accompanying Zhou on the ship disliked the idea as well. Chu said it was fine if they didn't want to lend it but warned them not to insult his honor. He unsheathed his sword, making it clear that he would leave with what he came for, nothing less. Chu Xiu asked Elder Mo to distract Zhou Yu's lesser saint companion while he handled the other. Elder Mo launched forward, wielding her 2 daggers. Zhou Yu thought Chu acted decisively. The young man accompanying Zhou promised to hold off Elder Mo and urged caution. He faced Elder Mo and unleashed something resembling a golden trap. Meanwhile, Chu Xiu moved swiftly and activated his secret art, Chaotic Lotus, as his opponent countered with the Azure Phoenix Flame art. An explosive clash of power erupted in the air. The opponent said he didn't want to fight Chu but had no choice now and blamed Chu for the escalation. In the heat of the battle, Chu struck him, sending him plummeting from the flying ship into the lake below. From above, Chu observed his opponent floating in the water, seemingly satisfied. Elder Mo turned to Chu Xiu and urged him to be more cautious in his actions, questioning why he went so far. She levitated the man floating in the lake back onto the ship, all while Chu watched from a distance, noticing her graceful demeanor. The young man thanked Lady Jinyaoi for saving him, placing his hand on his chest, relieved to find no injuries. Chu observed from afar and noted that the beautiful woman belonged to the Jin family. Lady Jin turned to Chu Xiu and asked him to spare Zhou Yu's life as a favor. Chu agreed, stating that for a beautiful woman like her, he could honor the request and let go of his stubbornness. However, he clarified that sparing Zhou Yu would come at a price, the item in question. She protested, reminding him that Zhou Yu had fairly won the item at the auction and accusing him of taking things too far by attempting to seize it by force. Chu expressed regret that they couldn't reach an agreement, remarking that they might as well stay together. Determined to acquire the bronze plate at all costs, Chu charged at her fiercely. Lady Jin criticized his arrogance, accusing him of provoking a conflict between the southern peaceful sacred land and the Jin family, and noted he was nothing like the rumors. He swiftly closed the distance, his attack aimed directly at her. Grasping at her neck, his murderous intent filled the air. She commanded him to release her, but before his grip could tighten, she executed a quick teleportation, leaving Chu grasping at water. The real Jinyaoi reappeared some distance away, holding a chi chain. Despite this, Chu attacked her again, knocking her into the ship. He remarked that he had been kind, but her stubbornness left him no choice. Dazed, she called him crazy. Suddenly, another presence entered the scene, catching Chu's attention. A voice asked him to calm down, offering an apology on behalf of the second lady. Jinyaoi was confused, unable to understand why Elder Mo apologized to Chu, while Chu noted that a greater saint was asking for forgiveness. Chu declared that since a greater saint had spoken, he would refrain from further action. He then considered taking the girl as a gesture of justice. With the absence of his master Manhua, he knew he had to tread carefully. The elder thanked the holy son of Tai Su, while Jinyaoi questioned why he had apologized. Pulling her into a portal, the elder explained that this was their territory, and acting recklessly would be unwise. Left alone with Chu Xiu's menacing gaze and unrelenting desire for the plate, Zhou Yu began to tremble in fear. Begging for his life, Zhou Yu pleaded to be spared, admitting he wasn't thinking straight earlier. He offered to hand over whatever Chu desired and implored him to spare his life, saying it was even scarier when Chu remained silent. Chu, stepping closer, demanded that Zhou hand over the item and said sparing his life would depend on his mood. Zhou Yu reluctantly reached into his pocket, thinking about how someone like him, who always stood out wherever he went, had failed. Chu extended his hand, keeping his other hand in his pocket, and told Zhou to hand it over, saying he wouldn't stoop to pick it up. At the last moment, Zhou Yu knelt down, hesitated, and declared he wouldn't give it up but then pulled the item from his pocket. Stretching his hands out, he gave exactly what Chu needed, thinking that the other part of the plaque was now in Chu's possession. Dejected, Zhou Yu said he had given what Chu wanted and asked if he could leave now. Chu placed his sword on Zhou Yu's shoulder and stated he wouldn't let him go. Zhou asked why he was doing this. Looking him in the eye, Chu explained that unless he removed the roots, the weeds would grow back. Raising his sword, he said he always cut the roots when dealing with things. The young man lowered his head, screamed for his parents, and begged forgiveness for his failure. As Chu was about to deliver the fatal blow, Zhou Yu's older brother intervened, neutralizing the attack. The older brother also begged Chu to spare Zhou's life, but Chu remarked he thought the brother would just stand by and watch. Still holding his sword, Chu rested it while observing the brothers argue. Chu asked Zhou if he planned to seek revenge after seeing his little brother get hurt. Zhou replied that he wouldn't, it was his fault for being weak. Satisfied, Chu mounted his sword and flew away. As he distanced himself, Chu thought he had already gotten what he wanted and decided it was time to return. Later, Chu was receiving a massage from Elder Mo to ease the tension in his body. She commented on how polite he was and noted that it was her duty to protect him while he was away. However, she couldn't understand why he hadn't eliminated Zhou Yu, asking if he wasn't afraid Joe would return. Chu replied that Joe had already been beaten once, and if he came back, he'd be beaten again. Looking at her, Chu suggested she spend the night in his room so they could discuss cultivation. She asked if he was sure that was the purpose of his invitation. Blushing, she told him not to act this way, warning that if the sacred master of the rising sky peak found out. Placing his hand on her leg, Chu assured her it wouldn't matter even if both of them found out. At the Yao Xi Palace in the sacred land of Yao Xi, Tai Suzy and Qi Mengdai were in a meeting. Qi Mengdai began by stating that everyone on the celestial continent already knew that Yao Xi Palace aimed to recreate the legendary constitution. Their holy son had been chosen for this purpose, but the sacred master of Yao Xi Palace acknowledged he wasn't ready. Qi Mengdai argued that trying to reap the benefits without putting in the effort was absurd. It didn't make sense. She would contact them once the holy son was ready. Sacred Master Tai Suzy explained that she had read ancient scrolls and, after deliberating, concluded that when the holy son was ready, he would face a great challenge. If he failed, he would die. Even if he succeeded, he would suffer severe injuries that would drain his lifespan, leaving him with only one more year to live. If he had the innate Tao body to assist him, this could change. Hearing this, the holy daughter felt embarrassed. Tai Suzy declared that the two were there because she wanted the holy daughter of Yao Xi Palace to undergo dual cultivation with the holy son. This would help him overcome the challenge. The sacred master of Yao Xi Palace wanted assurance that he could overcome it. Tai Suzy promised that if the holy son succeeded, Yao Xi Palace would have a Taisu holy son as their consort. The legendary constitution would soon be recreated. However, if he failed, the sacred land of Taisu would lose their holy son, while Yao Xi Palace wouldn't lose anything. The master asked her disciple what she thought. The disciple replied that her opinion didn't matter. If it was for the good of the sacred land or if the master requested it, she would comply. Qi Mengdai grew furious, thinking that the unfaithful disciple was getting lucky and would gain a beautiful wife. She had thought she alone would be humiliated by him due to her fragrant celestial body. But now he would have a beautiful woman with the innate Tao body. The thought infuriated her. The master of Yao Xi Palace said she would discuss the marriage arrangement, since their holy daughter wouldn't leave the palace. Qi Mengdai asked if she wanted the holy son of Tai Su to marry her right there, but she replied no, saying the two would be a couple but live separately, each in their own sacred land. Their child, born with the legendary constitution, would be raised in the Yao Xi Palace. Tai Suzy said they had an agreement, and thought that if Chu passed the security test, nothing else would matter. Afterward they departed. The palace master asked her disciple if she was satisfied with the decision. The disciple replied that it wasn't about satisfaction, as the land would soon undergo significant changes. Even if the legendary constitution was born and raised in the Yao Xi sacred land, the sacred land would have nothing to fear. Her master explained that if they went through with this, her disciple's lower saint cultivation would decline, while Chu's Shio would benefit from dual cultivation. The disciple, blushing, said that after the child was born, she could return to cultivating normally. And with that thought, she felt more at ease. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.